that whole aspect around people, like I suppose my passion is people and their motivators and how they behave, and it's kind of driven me and for myself as well, but for helping other people.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I've learnt though through that is every time I think, oh, I've done this self-development and I'm healed and I'm there, something else pops up and something else shows its face, and I've realised now that there is no space where I'm going to go, oh, cool, I've done it, I'm perfect. And I think that's what holds people back sometimes, because they're always thinking, but I'm not good enough here and I'm not good enough there. But that's part of the whole process of life. Like, you're never going to be perfect at anything. You know, it's those 1%ers, as you were saying before.
Yeah, it's the Disney fallacy, right? It's like, when I get married, then my life is perfect.
Yeah.
When I have a kid, my life is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it's like, then, you know, I haven't been married or had a kid, but I've climbed enough mountains to know that when you get to the top of the mountain, you look across, you're like, damn it, there's a bigger one over there.
Yeah,
You know?
I want that one.
Yeah, and I think that's and you know, let's take the Instagram post for example.
Yeah.
I've done really well, I've made all this money, and I got the red Porsche.
Yeah.
And then I post a picture of the red Porsche. And that's it.
Yeah.
Now I just get to drive the red Porsche when I go to the shops or when I go to get coffee or whatever it is. But someone who I don't even know, who's following me, goes like, oh, Jake's made it. He's got the Porsche.
Yeah.
You know, he's letting me know too. And like, anytime I forget, I can go to his page and remember that he's got the red Porsche. Little does he know, I'm sitting there going like, what's next?
Yeah.
You know? And it's crazy to the past 5 years of business. I've gone like, I'm in a spot now that 5 years ago when we started this, if an older version of me had come from the future and said, you're going to achieve this, this, and this, I wouldn't have believed. I would have believed that there's like a 0.001% possibility that it could have happened.
Yeah.
But it happened.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, I'm not here going like, I'm here going like, what next? Well, if this, then what? You know, like, if this is possible, then how high is the ceiling? Because it seems to be there is none.
I totally agree. And I think what changed for me in that space, because I'm the same, every time I go, that's my goal, okay? And then I get my goal and I'm saying, I'm like, oh, what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
So I've got, if you just look at the tertiary element of myself, right, I've got 2 degrees, a master's, and now doing a PhD. After the first degree, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. Give me a couple of years and I'm like, oh, I need to do something else, right? And so that has fed a lot of my inner achiever. But then also in my business, when I started that, same thing would happen. I'd put a program together and I'd do that and I go, oh, what am I going to do now? And so I'm progressively always looking, I suppose you can say, for that next fix.
Yeah.
But it's more of a self-achievement. Like, it really just blows me up. And even in my job, I did the same when I was in corporate. I was always going to the owner and going, oh, we should get accreditation for this and we should do that. Like, I'll look after it. And I think at some point though, what's helped me is recognizing that and going, oh, that's a big need that I have.
Yeah.
And then ended up becoming the master of that rather than letting it become the master of me.
Yeah.
Which has been an interesting part of my journey, I suppose.
You know, I got this interesting like, I like crazy examples because they always highlight the point of the analogy you're trying to make. But Pepsi Max doesn't taste the same if you've smoked crystal meth.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because as a child, you have Pepsi Max and you're like, this is crazy. It's like, yeah, I know. And it's just, you put it in the fridge for a couple of hours and you get it, warm day, Pepsi Max, a little bit dehydrated, it hits like nothing else.
Yeah.
But, and not saying this is someone who's done meth.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that your knowledge of how high can go, that used to be like a Pepsi Max on a cold day is it in a bit, you know? But then you realize that is a fraction of what is possible of how good you can possibly feel. And the problem is, as soon as you know that, as soon as you have that knowledge, then a Pepsi Max never hits the same.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There is an exception to the rule there, because the longer you go from experiencing that high, whatever it is, whether it's climbing the mountain, getting the deal, you know, like winning over the girl, whatever it is, if you give yourself enough time from it, then you sort of reset that knowledge and that expectation of what's possible. And then one day, hopefully, you can drink a Pepsi Max and you're like, whoa, this is it, you know? But I think it's that what you said there is redefining what's possible.
So, you know, the way I was raised, I didn't even think study was possible. It was a manager that I had that actually encouraged me to go, and then look at me now, right? So if it wasn't that person that saw the potential in me and had that belief system that was possible, I never would have done it. And I think that's now what I challenge myself to do is if I go, I don't think that's possible, in my head I go, why not? and and I question everything. Like, I always ask myself questions. Is
Yeah.
this true? And really sit in that, and I go, well, they've done it and they've done it. So why can't I do it? Is it just me believing that it's me that can't do it? Because it's possible to do.
I think that so the catalyst of your journey is almost someone else recognizing a potential in you that you hadn't recognized yourself yet.
That was my life pretty much. I reckon up until probably I started my business only about 4 years ago. Most of my life was other people seeing things in me that I didn't see, until I got to a point where then I was like, you know what? Like, I now see it. Like, I see it in me. But it took lots of struggle. Like, if I went through, we've got a whole new podcast we'll do. If I went through my whole childhood, all of the stuff that I went through there, then, I've had 2 long-term relationships that had children in each one that have failed, which is major life changes you've had to go through.
Yeah.
A lot of abandonment kind of theme throughout my life, to then one day actually wake up and go, you know what, like, anything is possible for you if you just set your mind to it. But it took other people seeing it in me and then giving me space to have evidence for that.
Yeah, evidence is a big deal. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do, yeah.
Are you the middle child?
I'm the eldest child.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
So you brunted the world and then not we've forgotten about. I'm an only child. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
So what's the age difference between you and the next child?
There's 3 years between me and my brother. He's the middle one, and then 5 years between me and my younger sister.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, but when I was growing up, I had like, my dad used to work away at sea in the Merchant Navy. So for how long he was away, he was home. So if that was 6 weeks, it was 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off, or 3 months or whatever. And so I spent a lot of time there, and my mum had a lot of alcohol dependency issues. And so I kind of felt like most of my life I was caring in that space, and also looking after the kids as well, I suppose, to a certain extent. And whether it's true or not, my belief system is that I felt like I raised them and I kind of was parenting there as well.
Yeah.
And so I never really had space to be me.
Yeah.
I always had to be in a responsible position and be responsible. And I suppose that's really set me up for my life.
Yeah.
But in that space as well of always being responsible, there's not a lot of creativity, right? And so it's the creativity that really inspires you to go and do out those weird, wonderful things that you think aren't available to you.
Yeah. So does that mean, do you drink now?
I did for a long time until I fell pregnant with my daughter.
Yeah.
So I ended up stopping drinking. I stopped with my son, but I started again. With my daughter, I stopped. And then after I had her, I had a bit of a big night, and the hangover was terrible.
Yeah.
And so I realised then I can't. So every now and again I'll have a drink, but I'm definitely not the drinker that I was.
Yeah. So you're not a non-drinker or sober, but it's not something that is a regular. Yeah. Interesting. And do you not drink coffee for a reason?
Just don't like the taste.
Really?
Love the smell.
Yeah.
I could smell coffee all day, but I've just never liked the taste of coffee.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think so you touched on creativity. I think creativity is so I like never deemed myself as creative. I did a lot of creative writing when I was younger.
Yeah.
I did a lot of creative romance writing when I was in my teenage years, which is looking back on it is really like confronting, because I read it now. I'm like, this is actually also good.
Yeah.
And based off
yourself. Yeah.
I didn't have any like intimate relationships until I was like 19.
Yeah.
So I was almost writing like fantasy writing about romance.
Yeah, right.
Which sort of in that time of like obviously adolescence, typically it's more like sexually driven, whereas this was more like intimacy driven.
Yeah.
It was always about like how she was feeling and I was feeling, and like trying to blow up these moments that were like a split second, but it was like all these sort of mechanisms all working together. And yeah, but as far as creativity is concerned, I never really saw myself as like an artist or a creator. And I feel like I am the complete opposite of the spectrum now, where I am nothing but an artist and a creator. I problem solve. I stare into the sky and I ponder, and I think there's something in and I'm just like, I'm brainstorming at the moment. These are fresh ideas, just sort of like figuring you out, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's this like correlation between your like second birth as a human, as an adult, where you realize that you're actually in so much more control than what you anticipated before. And in that pattern, in that formula is, well, if I can be anything, what do I want to be? And that causes you to use your creative imagination rather than your stock imagination of just rehearsing things you've seen before, and actually come up with something like, well, I guess I want to be healthy and I want to be meaningful. I want to have purpose and all these things that didn't apply to you before, and now they're applying to you in a deep and meaningful way.
Yeah.
And in that, you realize I created that version, and that makes me a creator. And if you want to get religious and biblical about it, well, that just opens up a whole new can of worms as well, you know. But that, yeah.
Well, I am quite spiritually inclined.
Okay.
And I do find that, like, most of my jobs were kind of in more male-dominated, traditional, fixed industries.
Yeah.
And so it was probably, I wasn't able to be my creative self in that space. You know, if I talked about intuition or energy and stuff like that, it wasn't the audience that kind of received it as well. So I felt like I did hold back a lot. So moving out of corporate and into my own space, I've really explored that a lot more, even to the point, if we're going to go into a bit of the woo-woo, is like I did a hypnotherapy course as well as my psych degree. So I'm a hypnotherapist. And in a session I was having, just as part of the training, I actually went into what I thought was a past life. And I'm like, this is weird. So then I actually got 6 of my mates. I'm like, do you trust me? Can we try something out here? I got 5 of them back into past lives and into what I call like an in-between life space. So it's kind of like a space where people feel that unconditional love, that worthiness. Like the clients that I have just are mind-blown by it. I would not have been able to do that if I hadn't have gone into that spot where I was becoming more sure of myself.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when I first started my business, I didn't say I was a hypnotherapist. I said, I do this therapy, and you're like kind of like in a meditative state, and then we do this. It took me about 2 years to actually put on my business card and everything, I'm a hypnotherapist. Yeah. Purely because my logical mind had governed me for my career. Like I used to do auditing, right? Like I was so in my logical mind, and it served me so well until that point where I was like, hang on a minute, this is still conditioned by what I think my environment needs rather than what I think I need. Yeah. And that was probably my biggest shift.
Yeah, there's a weird change that happens when you, like, if we generalize what that is, a scope of work, right? I think there's this like push and pull between what you can do, what you should do, and what you want to do. And I think there's definitely like you find purpose in what you want to do, you find money in what you should do, and you find heartbreak in what you can do. You know, there's this interesting like, well, you've got a printer, print everything. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, why can't you do everything?
Yeah. And it's like, why can't you do this $12 job? Why can't you print on this motorcycle jersey, why can't you, well, I can. Yeah. I can. Now, what should I do? Well, I should do the jobs that are invoiced out at 10 grand a piece. Yeah. And I should just do one of them a week. Yeah. What do I want to do? Well, I want to work with other business owners that take their shit as seriously as I take mine. Right? So then you sort of like oddly draw squiggly lines on your scope of work as far as like, I'll do my mate's motocross jersey that's a stuff around and takes 45 minutes and I can only charge $30 for. But I also am trying to get high-vis clients who have 50 staff members who repeat their business every 3 months without fail, I think fitting your trajectory into that is like you've that throw net that you throw when you're first in business. You're like, I can do this, I want to do this, I should do this, and the mix of what that turns into. Then over time, you realize like, actually, when I do more of what I want to do, I feel better.
Lights you up.
Even if the money goes down a little bit, my quality of life and how I see myself and how I perceive myself, and when I wake up and look at myself in the mirror and like, you badass, that makes me feel richer than what my bank account does. And then when you do the things that you should do and refine them, so we're getting away from what you can do, when you do things that you should do, and then that sort of aligns with what you want to do. So then you look in the mirror and you're like, I can afford to go out for lunch today as well.
Yay. Yeah.
Now we're talking about like, all right, I'm tethered to this life. I'm not just like, I don't feel like I'm just pushed and pulled around what I can do and what people expect me to do and how people perceive me and how I turn that into their reality. Whereas in fact, I'm in my reality and I'm putting one foot in front of the other and I like myself, you know?
Well, I found myself coming to the end of last year. So I'd ended up meeting someone new that I hadn't intended to. So I was, especially after coming out of a quite a long marriage, and the way that ended was a little bit a bit ick. And I was just happy doing my own thing because I'm so busy. I don't really have, I make time for my kids and I make time for me, but they're big priorities, and my pets probably.
Yeah.
So when I met this person, it was just meant to be just a casual thing, and I fell hard and I fell fast, and it ended up not coming through to anything. But it really just rocked me because I didn't think that I was capable of caring for someone like that.
Yeah.
So that happened at the end of the year. At the same time, I had a long-term contract that had ended as well in my business, and that covered all of my basic expenses. So then I had the freedom to just do whatever I wanted to from a financial aspect. So that happened at the same time. January for me was probably one of the lowest points of my life that I've had, and I've had some pretty low points purely because I felt that I didn't deserve it. Right. Not saying now I look back on it, it was brilliant, right? Because there was all that abandonment stuff that I'd had as I was going through my life. That all just came up. It got dealt with. It got processed because that's kind of what I was facing. But at the time, because I have like these spiritual elements, whether you refer to God, source, universe, whatever anyone's thing is, I was kind of like, I don't think I've got the worst life, but it sure wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And I still show up happy. I still show up kind. I'm still giving. Like I'm on lots of committees. I give back to community.
Yeah.
And I just found the happiest point in my life, you know, taking my dogs to the park every day and all this sort of stuff. And now you've ripped this from underneath me, like you've ripped the rug out. And I felt so hard done by. So it was a process of probably about 3 weeks. I wouldn't say that I was at the point where I would have taken my life because there's so many reasons not to. But I would say I was at a point where I thought if someone told me that today was my last day, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
Kind of in that space. Which was so out of character. So I had a few people around me really worried because it's not how I think.
Yeah.
And but processing and letting that come through and having the time just watching Netflix, which is just not like me all day, and just really being in a soup of that yuck and becoming comfortable with that then allowed me to shift out.
Yeah.
And I can now say, looking back at it, it was probably one of the best highlights of my life, even though it was only a couple of months ago, because the inspiration now that it's given me to think, you got through that. Yeah. And now there's these other opportunities coming that wouldn't have come if you hadn't have endured that.
Yeah, I think, you know, like spiders like shed their skin.
Yeah.
I think there's like in my mind I'm seeing a thing to like, sometimes you can sort of hold on to an old crappy version of yourself. And instead of that, or if you get lucky enough, that version of you can decay to a point that you see no other option but to shed that skin.
Yeah.
And
that was for me, and for me now as well. Like I've still got this semester at uni is pretty hard with the PhD, and then I go into my research, so I've got a bit more freedom. Yeah. But I've actually come to the point where I've got heaps of these spiritual gifts that I've shared with quite a few people, but because I've got such a, I suppose, standing in the business community, I've never really gone all in on them. Because of that fear of abandonment from people that I've built relationships with. And I think that for me was such a pivotal point. And in the background, I've got these little projects that I'm working on at the moment that are going to be purely around energy. Like I even do energy healing. There's some people I wouldn't tell that to because I think they'd think I'm a crackpot. I don't care anymore. But I needed that time to shed all of those expectations to be able to come into that space, you know?
That confidence in your ability, that's like such a... I think that's one of those things that from the outside, people see that and want that for themselves. And, you know, it's funny, you know, like when you're in school and you look at the popular kids and you're like, this person isn't necessarily attractive or has any skills or anything. They're just really sure of who they are. Yeah. And then you have these fleeting moments. Well, this is my experience. Have these fleeting moments where you're like, you really are who you are, and you forget you're at the cafe, and you go off on a rant, and you're like, and this and this and that and rah, or maybe you're storytelling and you're animated and you're passionate, and then all of a sudden you remember where you are and you look around and there's a cute girl over there looking at you and you're like, oh my God, there's something makes you want to like crawl back into your shell and be all good. But I think the reality is you're never more attractive than what you are in that moment, because you are unapologetically exactly who you are. And it really doesn't matter if you're attractive. It doesn't matter if you're valuable in whatever sense. You were just you.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we have these moments where we do that and someone's like, all right, buddy, calm down. And you're like, oh, I'm gross, you know? But the reality is, more often than not, if you can live in that space and you can just be you unapologetically to enough to a point where that is now just you.
Yeah.
Like, just be vulnerable and just like, yes, this is my opinion. And yes, this is a side of me that I'm embarrassed about. And yes, I'm not perfect, but that's who I am, you know? And especially when you can translate that into a business sense, oh man, it's game over because you've won, you know? Now it's just trying to hold on to that almost fleeting thing that's going to try and escape you, but you have to practice it every day and every day and every day until you can just rock up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm the man. What do you want? You know?
and that's the thing, I suppose, for me, is I masked for so long. Like, you know, even in my corporate role, I don't know if people I worked with or my bosses would disagree, but I thought I was mint at it. But I learned how to, like, I could get along with anyone, and I can now. I'll meet anyone from down. I worked in transport. Yeah. So from the tyre fitter to the truck driver through to the client reps, like it didn't matter who it was, I connected with them. And I think that's because of my love of people. But there's also an element of masking in that, right? Because you're showing up to them in a way that you know is going to be conducive to them accepting you. Yeah. So coming into a space of then bringing out more of your authenticity. I mean, even in the long-term relationships I had, I was too much. You know, like in the first relationship I had, I got told I was a bit embarrassing. Like if we went out to places, I embarrassed them. And so I adapted, right, to fit into that space. The second one as well, there was things that happened in there as well that actually I was too much, or the things I was never good enough, you know. First off, I drank too much. So then when I stopped drinking, then it was something else that was something else. And so I took on from the world around me that I needed to fit in. And that's what happens to us from kids, right? We're born and then we're socialised.
Yeah.
We've got this concept of fitting in with the family, fitting in with school, fitting in with stuff. And I think for me, whether people refer to it as a midlife crisis or not, I actually got to this point where I'm like, you know what? Being me will fit into the right spaces.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's where I'm going to thrive. That's where I'm going to be energized. Like that's really the purpose of life is, you know, just being authentically you, and you would become a magnet. Yeah. Like you said, it's attractive, right?
Yeah,
and you start
100%.
attracting the right things and the right people into your spaces.
Well, on a simple note, like let's use the theoretical analogy of you being the overzealous storyteller in the cafe setting and there's a cute girl over here.
Yeah.
If she thinks you're unattractive in that moment, she's not for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like who fucking cares? I don't even know her name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
And I just told a story that I think is awesome. When I was there and I was, you know, it's like, and I think that's, I don't know, to sort of reflect on what you said though, I think, and like, feel free to shoot me down because most often I'm wrong, so I might be wrong, but it's a very female thing to do, to put on that mask for everyone. You know, like a high percentage of autism goes undetected in females because females are so good at masking and being the person that they need to be at a moment's notice.
Well, I worked in an environment most of my career that was pretty much male dominated as well, or predominantly men. And so I had to fit in my mind to fit in there. I couldn't be completely myself, you know. I had to have that more masculine trait. I had to talk about topics that was going to be relatable to the people so that I could fit in and do my job properly. And so I think, women coming into, there's some workforces that are predominantly women, but most women in workforces, especially at leadership levels, are surrounded by people that aren't like them. And so, we do need to kind of try and mask a little bit to fit in.
So like every topic, it's so much more complex than like black and white fittings for like what we're talking about right now is like women in leadership positions in big companies, right? Typically have masculine traits to get to a position like that, not because it takes masculine traits, but because masculine traits tend to lead towards leadership, right? So there is something about having the courage to go up over the hill and look at the saber-toothed tiger and go, it's coming for my family, I'll go for it. Yeah. That's a very protector, masculine, you know, and like, yes, fully there are women who can fight saber-toothed tigers. I don't deny it. Yeah. But typically 9 out of 10 blokes walk into the flame to protect what's behind them.
Yeah.
And you don't find women who don't have that tendency within them somewhere that will end up in that position.
But I think as well, though, we're starting to realise, traditionally, yes, I agree, leadership was all about masculine traits. But I think as we're becoming more into being more aware of leadership and how it interacts with different people and how it can affect and flow through, some of those more feminine traits are the ones we're looking for, like empathy and understanding and consultation. Sure. And so I think now that we're slowly changing in that space, it can be a bit different. So it's interesting because my PhD is around gender bias as well. So awesome. I'm actually looking at how hypnosis can actually reduce gender bias. That's going to be my research project. So at the moment they look at cognitive-based training and awareness training, and it helps to a certain point, but some of this is subconsciously driven, right? Yeah. And my passion is the subconscious, where stuff comes from. Bring it up. What's happened throughout your life. Yeah. And so one of the studies I came across, which is, I love this fact and I share it with everyone, is in America they looked at these hurricanes, right? One was named after a male and one was named after a female. So they looked at the mortality rates or the death rates associated with them, and the one that was named after a female actually had more deaths associated with it than the male. So usually when I ask people, why do you think that is, they get like, oh, it's more vicious, it's more this, it's more that. But it actually came down to the fact that people didn't think it was going to be as intense because it was named after a female. Wow. So when they did the research on it, less people evacuated for the female hurricanes than they do for the male named hurricanes.
You want to protect people, you call the hurricane Hitler.
Yeah, then it will go, right?
It's going to do something crazy.
It will. So we're in this space where gender bias isn't a man problem, which is originally that's what everyone said. Oh, men need to do this and men need to do that. It's not a man problem at all. It's a community problem. It's a people problem. Like I did an implicit association test, so you can just look up that. It's an IAT with Harvard, right? And they put up different images and it takes your response time on how you match those images to see if you've got a bias or if it's just implicitly quick for you to make those choices. Yeah. I had a gender bias. When I was doing my degree. So here I am, very pro-women, very supportive of women, but I'm still biased in where I think women sit in the workforce or where I think women do better. And so I think because it comes from the subconscious, we have this conscious awareness of going, oh yeah, but this is how it should be or whatever. Yeah. But that information is biased because we're bringing it up from a belief system we don't even realise exists. Like when we're talking about leadership. Leadership is masculine, but hang on, is it 50-50? It probably is. There's some feminine stuff that we bring in as well, you know?
I think as I have so many points, this is nuts. Great synapses as well. Yeah. I think the first thing is we're talking about an ideal scenario, right? Because what we do as humans when we evolve, we get better. 1%, yes. 1%. Yeah. So 100 years ago when Henry Ford was CEO of Ford Motors and he introduced the assembly line and he reinvented the way that we did work essentially. You know, every employee had one job. All you do is you make the headlight and you do the panels and you do the paint and you do this and you do that. I'm not thinking there was a lot of room for females on his board. Yeah. Because that's not what females probably weren't even on the assembly line. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Fast forward to 2025, I've had some powerful, inspirational, like yourself, women on this podcast that have made me step back and go, whoa. I didn't have circles skated around me, but I may as well have, you know, because it's a good example is Ash Atkinson. She owns a Climb Collaborative. I've had her on the podcast twice and every time she comes on, I'm just like, you're a weapon. It doesn't matter how I perceive what you do. You're a weapon. Yeah. And in a way that it's funny because my immediate thing is to say, well, she's a very masculine in her focus and energy, whereas it's probably not the case at all. Yeah. You know, I'm probably the victim, to save myself. I'm probably the subject of a subconscious bias. It does come from, well, she's a female. How could she possibly do that? Yes, yeah. But as a privileged, tall, attractive white male, yes, I understand that I'm going to have a lot of preconceived notions about how the world should or is or whatever it might be. I'm also the enemy of the world right now. I am. You know, you're in business and everything's going your way and you live in a beautiful house and this, that and the other. It's like, yeah, I also worked really hard, you know, but it doesn't really matter. Like I was saying before, I touched on a touchy topic in a previous podcast with a guest and I have to preface it every 15 seconds with, I know I'm from privilege and I know that I don't understand this and I know I don't understand that. I think something that like, just as the pendulum is starting to swing back, which I think it is for a lot of things, with woke culture and with, gender politics and all these things, like there's a certain point where you stop saying sorry, or you get sick of saying sorry, and you get sick of like, I'm sorry that I have toxic masculinity, and I'm sorry and I'm sorry and I'm sorry and I'm sorry. I think regardless of where we sit in the timestamp of human existence, there is always a subconscious bias in whatever field you want.
Oh,
and
yeah.
All we're trying to do is just move the needle a little bit so that my children aren't shitheads as much as me.
Yeah.
You know?
But I saw you when I came in here today, and your acts of service, to the people that were in the room, and there was different genders in the room. And so when I see you and when I meet you, I don't see that privilege, right? Because your behaviours show that you are a humble human that believes that you're part of something bigger. There's this oneness. We all come in, we all interact. I think from my experience though, like I've experienced a lot of the privilege, and so that probably didn't help my bias as well. And so I've very conscious, and this is why I said to you before, it's not a man problem, it's a people problem, because I know that I need to clear that up first up. Otherwise, other people's biases are like, oh, she's attacking us as men. And I think there's equally as many women out there that are privileged and don't recognise it and take advantage and are terrible people as there are men.
Yeah.
But I think men have had decisions of power for so much longer that where this is coming up of being men feeling like they're on the outer, which is fine, white men, traditional white men, is because not that they are, but a lot of the other men that aren't waking up, right, that are feeling like, oh, there's this male loneliness epidemic. Well, they don't have support systems, right? They don't have all this stuff. Anyway, so where they're sitting is they're seeing women come up and they're doing the whole, oh, well, if she thinks that she's equal to us and making it so black and white, is they're kind of looking at it and going, well, why should they have opportunities, or they're taking over, or they're fearful, without realising that, no, what's happening is your position of power is now being eliminated and we're becoming equal par. Yeah. And that's uncomfortable for you.
Yeah, well, especially
because you're used to making all the decisions or being the main focal point of decisions,
Well, I mean, then you ask, where does that subconscious belief come from? Lewis? Where does that subconscious belief come from? And I think the sad part about modern society is it comes from media, because you're seeing more fatherless environments. The fact that, like, I don't know, little things like, why is every bad person in a movie from the 90s like black, Russian, Chinese?
Yep.
Right? And then moving...
Why are women always saved by men in movies? Why are women the never hero of the story? Yeah, all these sorts of things.
And it goes back to the Disney thing I said earlier, like girls believing that their life will be made when they're married
and have children.
And doing the thing.
Yep.
And I think, like, my sort of little response just now is based off a fact where it's like, I'm actually sick of saying sorry. Yeah. Because I'm working so hard on being the person that you saw when you walked in.
Yeah.
Like, oh, do you mind taking your shoes off? My fiance, do you want a coffee? This and that.
Respect my home. Respect other people's values and opinions.
Right.
That's just basic human decency though, right?
Right. Yeah. So then you get to a point, like I listened to a parenting pop culture podcast, a lot of P's, and they talk about, they review movies and then talk about the role that masculinity, femininity, parenting sort of plays in these movies, and how growing up on these movies affected the generation that are now becoming parents. Yep. They did Fight Club. So, of course, you've got Edward Norton's character, who's then, he has this, like, what do you call it? Like an imaginary friend of everything that he couldn't be, that he wanted to be, this Tyler Durden, which was every Gen Y's male sort of hero. Like, I want to be an eight-pack fighting freak like Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But to then break down the movie in such a way where you realize, like, he was actually the enemy of masculinity, because he was like, just use your emotions to fight harder, like use it to push back further on society, and use it to destroy the building, to ruin the relationship, to do all these things. And like listening to that, I had to do it in sections because I just got sick of hearing the words toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
You know, and not that they were bashing it. They were trying to go like, it's okay that you're having feelings. I'm like, fucking leave me alone. I don't want to have feelings, you know?
Yeah. But no, and that's the thing. No one wants to have feelings.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, especially child rearing, school, social contexts, women are encouraged and supported more when they're having feelings than what men are.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the thing is, like, when I was growing up, I got the whole, if you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry for, right? I was from that generation, good old Gen X. We had it tough, but it made us strong, right?
Yeah.
With my kids now, when they're upset, I actually ask them what it is, and I go, oh, that's actually really valid to have feelings about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why you would have those feelings. And then I'm like, okay, now what are we going to do about it? So I call it like the feel, deal, heal thing, right? So you got to feel it, you got to deal with it, and that's how you heal from it. But we're not actually a lot of the times given the opportunity to feel because people feel uncomfortable. Like if I came in now, or if something went wrong now and I just burst into tears, probably not with you because you are quite open and you're quite receptive, but with maybe just that traditional stereotypical white male, if I started crying, you would see them physically get uncomfortable with that. Like, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
Because we're not taught. And I think that's probably a lot of the basis. And then coming into this woke space that you said, that gets me because, if you're on social media, people use that as an insult, right?
Yeah.
So woke to me means that you care about the people around you and you care about how they view the world and you want to try and make it a good place for everyone. So if someone wants to use woke as an insult to me, go ahead. Like, I'm okay with that if you think that I'm a caring person. But the people that are using it as an insult, again, they just don't know how to feel. They don't understand it.
Yeah, and I think it's like maybe not a not knowing how to feel, but not understanding or comprehending the spectrum of feelings that are possible for a human.
Yeah, because they can't even sometimes explore their own healthily.
Yeah.
So, how can I be open to other people exploring theirs?
Yeah, I for the longest time I had a stick with me is a weird segue.
Yeah, okay.
I had my meniscus removed 6 years ago. Like 5.5, 6 years ago. Actually, 6 years ago. And so I was a professional athlete when I was 18. I lived in Holland, speed skating, was on a team, blah, blah, blah. Came home, finished my athlete career, and then sort of stepped into business with a coffee van. A couple of years after that, had the coffee van for 4 years, did truck driving for about 4 years, and then this all started.
Yeah.
Thereabouts. And I did a little bit of running maybe like a year ago, and I felt my other knee start to oh, that's not good. So I'm like, all right, just don't run. Just don't run. I don't run, you know?
Yep.
And every time I'm part of a running group, and every time they run, I ride. I'm like, they call me pedal assist because I've always got I carry everyone's keys and clothes as they're stripping off during the run.
Yeah.
And the other day it breaks my heart when you've been an athlete. Like I was top 10 in the world at one point. So I understand.
Oh, nice work, by the way.
I understand at an intrinsic level what they're going through, and it's like, I just fucking miss it.
Yeah.
And like I push myself really hard on my bike. I ride hills. I do wheelies behind cars. I love it. But I just want to run.
Yeah.
Right? And it was about 3 weeks ago now, 4 weeks ago maybe, I was like, I'm just going to just past walking, I'm just going to move my body. I'm going to take the dog with me. I'm going to go around the swamp and see how I go. So I just sort of kind of jog and I'm like, all right, I'm good. And also, if my knee starts hurting, I'm going to say, no, it's not.
Yep.
Because I fully believe that we construct the life that we live physically and psychologically purely based off how we work this.
Let's get back to that in a minute. I've got a point to share. Keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
So long story short, I went to do a gentle lap of the swamp and I instead ran 16.5 kilometers. Ran. So haven't run for how long, and then put that on Strava. The boys are going crazy, like, what the fuck? Like, you're on a beam scooter. There's no way you did this. I'm like, no, I did.
I did, yeah.
And then and it completely wrecked me. It completely wrecked me.
Good to hear, because that's a big, good, stellar effort, right?
So
you did that and just cruised afterwards. There's something wrong with you, but anyway.
Oh no, I'm talking it everything but psychologically fucked my body. So the following Sunday I did half marathon. I did 100 meters less than a half marathon. I did 21.1 kilometers.
Yeah, nice.
Which again, the boys are just like,
Nah.
Yeah, I get it. Just fucking whatever, you know? And it wasn't at a great time. I think it was like 2 hours and 5 minutes or something, which is like, honestly, for someone who's just tall, it's literally just past walking.
Yep.
It's just not stopping for 2 hours.
Yep.
I'm like, cool. All right. And then I went out and did a super fast 5K the next week, and then did a average 10K. Like it was fast. It was fast for an average runner, but it was like, for me, it just felt, I'm like, all right, cool, I can do this. And the big thing was, I did it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I went to the run club, which is Saturday morning, 5:30 every Saturday morning, we run. I did that, and it was the first time in over a year that I did a run with the boys. And we run, swim, and then, I'm actually almost emotional thinking about it now. But ran, swim, and then we go to Barloo and we hang out there and crack jokes for bloody 2 hours.
Yeah. But
in between the swim and the drive to Barloo, I'm bawling my eyes out because I did it.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
I used to tell, like, one of my mates, George, I used to tell him, like, consistently, I'm like, you don't understand, it breaks my heart seeing you guys run. Like, I'd do anything just to run. I would just want to run with you guys. And to think at 32 years old, I'm never going to run again. And I just couldn't accept that reality.
Yep.
Like, there's no way I can be this successful in business, in family, in life, and all these things and not be able to fucking run.
Yeah.
It's not an option.
Yeah.
And whether I have to get my other meniscus taken out, knees rebuilt, I don't care. I'm going to do this. And I did it.
Yeah.
And the actual event wasn't the 21Ks. It wasn't the 16 and a half. It was doing the 5 with the boys around the inlet and finishing strong and being drenched in sweat and swimming in the ocean and getting out and just being like, I fucking did it.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. The point that I'm making is it's so hard to explain why you cry in that moment.
Yeah.
Because it's not like there's happiness and there's pain and there's like this pent up something. It's like literally such a correlation of like 15 emotions that you can't put your finger on any one of them, but you're like, I just can't hold this in.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's like one of the times that I used to cry, because I never used to cry, right, for a long time. The only time I'd cry was out of frustration.
Yeah.
And that was really embarrassing because that would normally happen in a work context. So I'd be in front of someone frustrated. I could feel the tears. I'm like, great, this is going to meet the stereotype of the hysterical woman, right? And the environments I was in used to frustrate me. I've become a lot better with it now, and I will cry whenever I need to cry.
Yeah.
They actually did studies on the tears, right? The combination of the tears and the tears,
Molecularly.
thank you,
Yeah.
how they're set up are actually so different from sadness to gratitude.
Interesting.
Right? So when we're actually, it's just a release. And the work I do with the hypnosis sessions that I have, whether it's normal healing sessions for stuff going on now in this life or whether it's past life, every single person has tears because when we don't release them, they actually get stuck in our body. So that emotion gets stuck. You were talking before about how our body is affected by our mind, right?
Yeah.
So they're talking now and they're becoming more able to realize these somatic issues, right? Psychosomatic. So for stress, for example, is one that affects the body. So if someone goes to the doctor and they go, oh, you've got ulcers, normally they'll go, you're stressed. So we've already recognized that thoughts and emotion can physically affect the body.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
But we haven't gone deeper on it.
Yep.
So I had this point where I actually had frozen shoulder a couple of years ago, maybe 4 years ago or something. I couldn't move my arm further than this. So I went and got all the scans and stuff on it. And they said possible bursitis and signs of aging. And I'm like I am a bit old, but I look after myself. Like I'm 47, but there's no way that it didn't say that there was a major issue in there. So when I said, well, what am I going to do about it? They're going, oh, we'll just give you some cortisone and you'll be fine. And I'm like, I don't want cortisone.
Yeah.
So I actually have an energy healer that I go to monthly just to keep me balanced. So I went and saw him and he's like, let's explore this more. And he started unpacking all of this emotional stuff that I'd had stuck in me that I hadn't let go. Within probably 3 months, so I had an RTT session, that's what I do, with someone I know in the UK.
Is that Reiki?
Or rapid transformational therapy. So there's a little bit of energy healing in it, but that's the hypnosis. Yeah. So what we do is they go back and we ask this subconscious mind, okay, what actually has happened in this lifetime, or if you're doing past life, other lifetimes, that have actually come into this space where the subconscious thinks this is helpful for this person.
Yeah.
Because everything we do, the subconscious thinks it's good or it wouldn't happen, right?
Yeah.
So then once we unpack that and we get awareness at that level, we can then consciously create change.
Okay.
So we went in, and when I did that session with her, there was a lot at the time about me feeling like I had to support the whole family. There was a lot of weight on me, things like that. So within that session, I released a lot of that stuff I'd held and trapped in my body. So then with a bit of physio, I was seeing a physio, chiro, healing guy and the RTT, I actually now have full movement of my arm again from something that they said could not happen.
Yeah.
So then I had another friend I was talking to about it, and she's like, I've got this back issue and I've been for all these scans, the doctors can't find anything wrong. And I'm like, if they can't find anything wrong, then I can tell you what it is.
I'm next in line.
Yeah. So she come in, she had a session with me, and after that session, she actually said to me, I was jumping on the trampoline. She goes, my hip's a bit sore now though. And I'm like, yeah, because you've been compensating for your sore back, right?
Yeah.
And eventually that came through. And then I had another lady who worked on her knee. Again, scans everywhere, couldn't find anything wrong. So I think we know in science we have the effect, I can't even think of it, placebo effect.
Yeah.
Right. So we actually test medicines against how powerful the mind is at healing people itself.
Yeah.
Right. So we actually say, well, this medicine, these people didn't get it, but they actually healed anyway. So we've proven the mind does that.
Yeah.
And then we'll see if it's effective. But we haven't actually given it space to go that little bit deeper and actually really understand. So if you fall over now and you break your leg, then I'm saying energy healing might help, but that's not going to heal that, right?
Yeah.
It'll make the healing faster.
Yep.
But if you've sprained a muscle, or if something just starts hurting for no reason, usually then if you explore those thoughts and emotions that you've been carrying or that you've had trapped, that can usually bring around some change.
Oh, look, I've got a masseuse that I don't like talking about because she's so fucking powerful.
Yeah.
And so I've been seeing her for probably like 18 months.
Yep.
Let's say. Now I've got two great examples about what you're just talking about.
Yep.
So the first one was I had a internally traumatic experience recently where I had planned something to go one way and it didn't go that way.
Yep.
And I went out and did gardening. I'm not sure if you've seen the garden. I've got quite a garden, and a lot of it is tall hedges.
Yep.
And I had to get up on a ladder and trim the tops of these hedges. So you're leaning over, extending your arm right out, and then gripping something, which means, it travels all the way up.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and then I did that the Friday, the Saturday, and then finished on the Sunday. And by Monday, it's not that I couldn't turn my head. I could barely move my eyes without my neck hurting. And I was like doing all my little things. I was rolling it out, and I was, being gentle, and heat packs and, Tiger Balm and blah, 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 all the things that you do.
Yep.
And everything but as soon as you go to like pain relief, it's like you've got a bigger problem then. So I tend not to, I don't run with pain relief at all. I try not to. So I called up my masseuse. I'm like, hey, I'm in pain. I need you,
Yeah.
She's like, all good. I go there, and before we get started, I give her like a 2-week rundown of what's been going on in life before I give her the this is sore and that is sore. Because I know now that regardless of what I think she can fix it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She's fixed digestive issues. She's fixed
Yep.
Anyway.
I've helped people with autoimmune issues.
Right.
That's how deep it goes. So I'm believing every word you're saying here. Keep going.
So I tell her, I was like, look, I can't fucking do this. She's like, all right, put your hands up and lean to the side and do a backflip and whatnot. I'm like, all right. And I said, and just so you know, before all this started, she knows about this problem that's been going on for a while. I said, I dealt with this issue and this is what's going on. She's like, okay, cool. Lay down on your back. We'll get started. She takes she lifts my head up. She goes, just give me all of the cause you know how you kind of, every time someone's holding your head, you always hold it a bit just because it's like a subconscious thing to protect your brain.
Yes.
She goes, just completely let it go. All right, let it go. And she goes, I'm going to turn your head as soon as it starts hurting, let me know. So as soon as she starts to turn, it gets to there. Yep. She brings it back a bit. She goes, no, just let it sit there. And did this the other way, and did this about 6 times each side. And every side it's getting further and further and further and further until she lets go. She goes, right, now look, put your chin to your shoulder. And this is for the first time in over a week. And I'm like, oh my God.
What? Yeah.
What's happening? She goes, yeah, so your body has held on to that trauma that happened in that moment and created an injury out of it and then created muscle memory around that injury.
Yep.
And now, instead of you actually having anything going on there that I couldn't have massaged out.
Yeah.
Your
there was
brain,
nothing to massage out, right?
Your brain is telling you that we're holding on to that problem.
Yep.
And I was like, fucking witchcraft.
Yeah. I had someone say that to me once. I had a friend that had some issues with their foot.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, can I do some healing on you? And they're like, okay. And so I didn't, normally I actually go and physically move, but because they weren't as receptive to it, I just did it all in my mind. And so I wasn't sure if it was even going to work. And then when I finished, they actually looked at me and went, that actually felt like I was getting acupuncture. And they're like, that actually went, is that witchcraft? And I'm like, no, we're all capable of it.
Yeah.
Even my husband at the time, he had an issue with his foot as well. And I'm like, I'll do some healing. And he rolled his eyes because he kind of thought, I think he did believe in some of it, but not all of what I thought I was capable of. And I was actually visualizing me actually massaging the bottom of his foot. And I heard him go, oh,
yeah.
Oh, can you feel that? Because this is when I first started out. So I think for me, a lot of the stuff that I do, because you can't tangibly touch it, my logical mind still is coming to terms with it. And so I think, well, if I'm still coming to terms with it, other people won't believe me or other people won't see it. But I think it's the experience that speaks for itself, right? You don't have to, you don't see Wi-Fi. You have to connect with it.
I had it again with my heel.
Yeah.
Last week.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what's going on here. And she went to town on that for like an hour and a bit. And like everything from like, side psoas all the way down, hamstring, quad, calf. And obviously I'm running like a maniac at the moment. She's like, it's probably a running thing. I'm like, just fix it. Don't make it about running. Because I've already said it doesn't matter what it takes. I'm going to be a runner now.
Doing it. Yeah.
So then right at the end of the session, she's like, hang on, puts some things under my feet. She's like, right now, lean down till it hurts. Come back a bit. I'm like, no way. She's going to do this thing again. We did it 3 times in under like a minute and made it like 75% better. She's like, all right, go home and teach your body you don't have an injury.
Yep.
Something's going on. She goes, I've been here 2 hours. I don't have the time to figure this out for you right now, but go home and heal's fine. Yeah. That was Friday.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't, it's one of those things where when I cross-reference this with prayer, and like prayer is this sort of like overused word, I believe, because you think prayer is something that you make the sign of the cross and you look up into the sky and you talk to God.
Yes.
Right. And I think that you can replace all of those things, all those words with words that are maybe a bit more comfortable and a bit more digestible for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's like you can put together a intention sort of rehearsal.
Yeah.
And you can, instead of crossing yourself, do some sort of action that's then sort of ritualizes it as an important moment.
Yep. And telling your brain we're connecting to this higher source here. We're doing this.
The antenna is now going to connect to the infinite intelligence.
Yes.
I'm going to tell it what I want and ask for it.
Yep.
And I'm going to receive it. And if I don't actively do those things, and there's more of the steps, but in essence, if I'm not doing those things with that purpose, then without the faith, it's not going to work anyway.
Yeah.
So when you go, all right, I'm going to fix this problem in my neck. No, you're not. There's no way she can.
Yep.
Are you going to fix this problem in your foot? Yeah, good luck.
Yep.
It's not going to work.
Exactly.
But if you believe in me, I believe in me.
Yeah.
I believe that I can do this for you.
Yeah.
And that works in like we're trying for a baby at the moment.
Yeah.
I just say, all right, God, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yep.
We've been through to get to this house. I had to have a vasectomy reversal. I had to figure out a way to make this business make money. And it's like all of those, I just asked and it came. I knew that it would work and it did work. And now it's like the next step is get pregnant. All right, God, do it.
Well, coming out of that month that I had at the start of this year, I tell people write things on your mirror, right? Because it programs your subconscious. So you don't have to, if you sit there and read it until it feels good in your nervous system, because your nervous system will react to things that don't feel familiar, right?
Yeah.
So read them or even if you just quickly read it, it sticks in.
Yeah.
So in my leadership program, we actually have a whole module on priming and I show people how that works really subliminally. And I just added my last one to it at the moment and it's like the universe wants me to win.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And when I read that, it flashes in my head all the ways that I already win. 2 healthy kids, right?
Yeah.
A roof over my head. A puppy that survived the blowfish eating last week. Just every day I am showing that I am loved, I am enough, I'm worthy, and I'm wanted to win.
Yeah.
And with that prayer element that you were saying before, so I was raised as a Catholic. So I went to church, I've had my Holy Communion, all those sorts of things. I now more believe that it's bigger than religion. I think to me, spiritualism is. So
religion's the blueprint.
Yeah, and I think religion's the class. Like it's It's a form. So I went and travelled India solo just before COVID. So lucky I got in before COVID. And I actually went and learned about Hinduism and Buddhism and the Sikh religion and how they all operate. And so one of my passions now is looking at the similarities between religions that I then pull out and go, well, this must be important. That's what I'm going to live by from a spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
Right. So I do refer to source as God. Some people call it creator, universe. I know that puts people off my reference to God, but that's just how I was raised and how I know it.
Yeah.
But I meditate every day religiously, right? Religiously. Choice of words, sorry. But every day it's part of my routine and my pattern to meditate. I do the same as you. I actually put my hands kind of out instead of forming the cross, and I actually ask for guidance and protection and blessing from all of the angels, archangels, guides, whatever you believe in before I meditate so that I'm in a good space. But that's just prayer. Right? Yeah. That's actually going and saying all of these really great things. Your affirmation lists, that's prayer. My affirmations on my mirror, when I say them, that's prayer. So I think anything where you're talking to something that isn't physically there, even our own inner chats. Yeah. So if I find, because now I'm getting more aware of my subconscious, something will happen to me, especially abandonment stuff. Oh, crikey, that's the story. I feel it in my nervous system. I feel the ping. I go, oh, that just triggered me. So I will sit there and go, okay, why did that trigger me? Why was that important? That's prayer, talking to yourself in those spaces, you know.
I think so you talk about the Our Father, right?
Yeah.
You rehearse it to the exact use of it, I don't know technically, as I was raised Catholic as well.
I've got some insights on that, so remind me when you finished about that.
So the Our Father is something that you can lean on in times of winning, losing, starting, finishing. It's something that you just reflect back to. It's I have a spare moment, I'll rehearse the Our Father, in the rosary, you will rehearse the Our Father so many times. And it's not necessarily I think Catholicism sort of builds a guilt wall around the practice, and that's what keeps you honest. It's like a God-fearing mentality rather than a God-loving mentality, which is a podcast of its own.
Yes.
The idea of that, though, speaking as a structure, the structure of what's going on there, is my prayers that I've developed over the time that I've decided to write my own prayers, have been carefully sort of dictated to a point where it's I can start my day on it, I can finish my day on it. When I win, I can rehearse it. When I lose, I can rehearse it. When I have a spare moment, I can rehearse it. Yep. The idea isn't that I need to do that for me. It's I get to do that for me, and that prayer is written in such a way that it reminds me, this is who I am. This is where I'm going. This is why I'm doing it. I am valuable. I am loved. I do love. I do fit in. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. My timing is perfect. I am who I am. Yeah. And I think that, again, like I said, it's the blueprint. I think the idea of religion is to build an understanding of, okay, you should have faith.
And it sets up regular practice, I think.
It sets routine. Yeah. It sets discipline. It sets guidelines and boundaries. It also teaches you that you are human and you're going to fail, and that's okay as long as we're not failing on the same thing over and over. And there is there's specifically 10 things that you can't fail on. That if you fail on these are the sorts of things that even if you get away with it in a humanly sense, you will live with it for the rest of your life. Yeah. If you kill someone, you will live with that. Yeah. If you've got that guilt aspect
anyway, right? If nothing else, even if no one else finds out, you've got to live with that.
That's right.
It's still going to affect your life in a negative way. So with the Lord's Prayer, that was actually around before Jesus was even born, right? So if you trace that back, they didn't say amen though, they said amin, which was actually the same relevance to that, but it was back from Egyptian times.
Okay.
So it's actually being brought through. And if you look at, so I do a lot of studying around pranic healing, which is that energy aspect. So Master Cho Kok Sui is the guy that actually brought that in. And when I do my meditation, I actually use the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi to do my meditation, and I actually bless the earth. So I actually I channel through good blessings and bless the earth, and then that actually helps me clear out all of the crap that I've got stuck in my energy body, right? So when you're saying your neck and all of that sort of stuff. But the Lord's Prayer is an activation system around all of your energy centers as well. So, yeah, if you're interested, have a bit of a look. And I don't know it all offhand, but I know, like, our Father who art in heaven basically opens up your crown.
Yeah.
Right? And so every line of that actually assimilates to different parts of your energy centers.
Yeah.
So it's
Hallowed
like
be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
Yeah, so the will be done is around your solar plexus and all of those sort of.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, so it's, and that's what religion has done. I think what's happened though is because religion has such negative connotations to it, because some of their belief systems are probably a little bit hard to believe. Some of the people that are in those systems probably aren't living the same values as what they're telling people to live, right?
Yeah.
And so we look at that whole institution and go, oh, it's crap, so its teachings are crap.
Yeah, you throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly. But no, if you look at, like, the major thing is loving other people, like the Holy Trinity, the Lord, the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit, right? Yeah. That is found in, if you look at Hindu religion, they have, it's Shiva and, I forget the other two now, not looking for it. But most religions have those three entities, which are the mind, the body, and the soul.
Yeah.
Right? And when you align the mind, the body and the soul, the mind and the emotions and the soul, when you align those things together, that's when you get to a place of harmony.
Yeah.
Right. So if we look at the inner teachings, and so this is something I'm a bit passionate about, I look at like the inner teachings of all these religions, they all have the same inner teachings about show up as a good person.
Yeah.
There's oneness in the world. So be kind to others because that's being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And don't lie, don't cheat, don't kill, don't do all of those sorts of things that don't form the character and integrity of a good person.
Yeah, well, I think I brought this up with Brendan Kelly on our conversation about the Bible. Like I'm reading the Bible front to back at the moment.
Yeah.
So far, and like I've been doing it daily for a minute, and I'm only in Leviticus. Like there's so much to digest because you really can only do a couple chapters at a time.
Yeah.
Chapter, verse. What's in between a chapter and a verse? Like yesterday I read Leviticus 22-23.
Yeah.
Which talks about, I think it's the rules for priesthood.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm getting from this, like, so if we talk about like Genesis something and then Leviticus, so far it's like the beginning of time, then it jumps to the escaping Egypt and all these miracles being performed, and then now Leviticus is like sort of reestablishing the rules now that they're freed slaves after living as slaves for thousands of years, right? And obviously the general story of the Bible that, I assume people peripherally have a knowledge of, but maybe they don't. Obviously the sort of crescendo is the story of Jesus and how he lives this really interesting life for 36 years, whatever it is, dies, gets killed on the cross, resurrected. And that's how we have Christmas and Easter is his story, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that seems to be really relevant as I read so far what I've digested and reflect on it with friends that I go to church with, and, like I've part of a church group that I haven't been to recently, but still the thing of going and talking to these people and having these discussions. I have another friend who I catch up with typically once a week, once a fortnight, and we just discuss what's going on in the Bible that I'm reading at the moment. He's such a great resource for me, is it seems to be a generalized blueprint of the human experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And while it uses, like, if you look at the Bible in a metaphorical sense, not a word for word description of what happened in history,
yes,
but rather a generalized version of how your life can be perceived.
Yep.
Right? Because it doesn't matter how in reality, like how real miracles are. If you look at the simple fact that I am where I am at the moment, it took so many back-to-back miracles to get here.
Yeah. Even your healing with your physio.
That is a miracle.
Your massage, people see that as a miracle, right? Yeah.
And I see that as a miracle.
Because you can't, it's not physically tangible. It's a miracle. Yeah.
And like, talking to Richie on the podcast, who was my team leader as a truck driver last week or the week before, if you told that kid who was driving trucks back then that this was going to happen, they'd be like, well, that's going to take a miracle for that to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like to even think that I want to have kids, like I had a vasectomy for 8 years. I had a vasectomy when I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that I'm here and wanting, praying to God as a religious man.
Yeah.
Give me healthy children.
Yeah.
Please. I'll do anything.
Well, when we look at the Bible as well, I think sometimes because, again, institutions and systems create things that set themselves up, but the Bible itself as well was written. If you look at when it was written, most people were illiterate.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't have the same language, concepts or understanding as what we have now. So it had to be written in a way that people with limited education and limited literacy would be able to understand it.
Right.
And so if you're reading it word for word, you're right, you're not getting the messages, you're not getting the meaning. It's the inner teachings. What is it actually trying to tell me through this scenario or this example or this parable or whatever?
Yeah.
One thing that jumped out to me, so salt water is very cleansing, right?
Yep.
So I even have, like, if anyone wants to do it, a little spray bottle with salt water and lavender in it. And if we're having trouble sleeping, spray it in your bedroom. It just eliminates all the negative energy because thoughts create energy, right? So when you look at the space where Jesus was washing his disciples' feet, right? And he was like, well, I've got to wash your feet so that you can get closer to my Father. If you look at those teachings, if he was washing their feet with salt water, it was, yes, there was some humility in it, but it wasn't just about humility. It was about him trying to open up their energy centers, right? So that they could actually have a higher spiritual connection.
Yeah.
And he said, they were saying my Father, but that was how it was written because that was the only way people would understand it.
Yeah.
They couldn't say the higher power or the source or the universe. And because he was teaching it, they connected it as something he owned. It's not something he owned, it was something he channeled, right?
And I think that, like, up until your, let's conservatively say like 16, the most powerful thing in your life is your father.
Yeah.
So to describe a power that is like it lasts the test of time throughout like your lifetime and through the lifetime of humans, like humanity, it's like the most powerful thing typically is the power source is the father. Yeah. And like, while life comes from a woman, it originates in a man. Yeah. So there's these like, and like also I had on the pastor of our church on the podcast, which was crazy to have him on the podcast. Just, I feel like it's very humanizing to have someone who's like lived a good life in front of you who has done all the bad shit to figure out that it's bad. Yeah. You know? Like,
I can relate to that. I've done some bad shit, right? Until I realize, hang on, this isn't a good person.
Right.
You need to do different. Yeah.
And, one thing that he said that really stood out was when I read the Bible, I'm not reading the Bible to read the Bible. I'm asking God before I start, even if it's just one line, have that thing illuminate through to me in this reading. Yep. You know? Yep. And ever since I sort of heard that and took that on, it's like, sometimes it will be the last line of the last verse that you're reading. Yep. And it's like, oh, that was it. Thank you.
That's the knowledge I needed.
Thank you.
Well, I don't read the Bible. I've probably moved away. Like I do go to Christmas Eve Mass every year. Yeah. That's just something that I like to do is my connection still with that heritage, but I don't really get involved in the whole Christianity thing as the structure of it. Yeah. I live the principles, but I do the same thing I feel like my connection to God is if something is troubling me, I will sit in that and I will go, can you please give me some guidance, please? It doesn't always, for me, it doesn't come from the Bible. It could be a song lyric. It could be a conversation I overhear. It could be something that I read in a book or on a social media post, and it'd be, like you said, that thing jumps out and it's like, that message was for me. Yeah. Right. And I think we underestimate how much we actually interact on that level, that subliminal level, if we don't have awareness. So we're missing so many different messages and so many different things.
You probably have a similar perception of reality here. When you've got a job, you are told like on Monday you'll be at work at 8, you'll have your smoko at 10, you'll have your lunch at 1, and then you can go home anytime after 4. But if you want to stay late, you can do that. Yeah. And then on Saturday morning, we're going to need you from 9 until 12. But after that, you're free until Monday morning at 8. All right? Yeah, yeah. And then, fast forward into life and all of a sudden it's Tuesday morning. Like this morning, the alarm went off and I was like, no, not today. Not today. And I turned it off and went back to sleep I normally wake up at 4 just for not to brag, I'm
I'm a 5, so get out. Yeah, early starter.
If you're up at 4 and pray, hydrate, read, you know, take a moment, I'm on the printer by 5.
Yeah.
You know, and that means that I've done all of my hard work, my brain sucking work.
Well, you set yourself up for success,
before the sun's up, you're good to go.
Yeah,
you know,
I love
if someone
that.
wants to fuck me around for 3 hours, like, all right, go. Like, I've done the important
I'm primed
shit.
myself, mate.
Right.
Yeah, I'm ready for this. Yeah.
So I, you know, this morning, like, no, 6 o'clock. Got up, the dog looks at me. I'm like, you're right, let's go for a walk. We go for a walk. I run into the girls at the cafe. We chat for 20 minutes. I'm walking home. The dude across the road who recommended the podcast I was actually referencing just before. And I was like, hey, great podcast, Rec. We get talking for 10 minutes, this and that. And then I come home and, like, you know, we're 20 minutes before you arriving. I'm like, I better get ready for this. I did that, you know, turn the coffee machine on, blah, blah, blah. And there's something so crazy when you build a life for yourself where you are in total control.
Yep.
Total control. Most people don't. 99% of the world has no idea what this feeling is like.
I know. Well, and that's why I was so in that really low state in January, because I thought I was going to lose all that. And what you don't know, right? Yeah. I always say that to people, and I say that to myself. Once you do know what life could be like, you just have so much more value and appreciation for what life is. Yeah, I don't think I could live my life any different. Like, there was a point there, because obviously I've gone down to one income. I've got my kids living at home. I'm studying, trying to run a business. So I've got fingers in pies, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good.
Yeah.
At one point I thought maybe I should get a job, because I've still got to turn up for my kids.
It's the enemy.
Oh, well, I applied for, I think, about 6 or 7 jobs. I got interviews for 3, nailed the interviews.
Yeah.
Like, I was getting offered these jobs, didn't get offered one. And I actually was grateful, and I was like, higher intervention, you've got something else ready for me, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I think living this life as well, and this is what a lot of people can't tap into, there's trust. You've got to have so much trust that tomorrow is actually going to bring you what you need. Even if today doesn't. People can't do that. That was my overarching point to this. I think the thing that I now lean on, like, intuition, gut feeling, right? Yep.
So I actually I had a phone call on Monday for a potential, thing to make money, I guess, you know?
Yep.
And as soon as I answered the phone, I was like, this ain't it. Doesn't matter what it's worth, this ain't it.
Yep.
And I said, look, man, I'll sleep on it. And all that day I was like, no. And woke up the next morning, I was like, no.
Still no.
And then I politely said, hey, sorry, but no.
Yeah.
Now, I think the thing that you get when you're in this, like, realm of, I like to call it floating in the abyss, you know, staring at the sun, chewing glass and floating in the abyss. Because
it's kind of how we're meant to live, but anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, like, you feast when you feast and you famine when you famine, and that's the point. Right.
And you know, though, that even if you're in famine, there's a feast coming.
Right.
You just got to keep going through. Yeah.
But I think the scary part about that is, like, do you let the fear of, like, knowing that famine is coming even when you're feasting stop you from sleeping in and taking the dog for a walk?
Yeah, exactly.
When do you break discipline?
Yeah.
When do you lean into novelty?
Yeah.
You know, and, like, novelty's a huge subconscious topic for me at the moment, because I realize that as much as I put all my faith and my discipline into prayer and reflection, and that diary to your right there is my sort of self-constructed diary that like, there's questions in it that I have to answer every day that hold me accountable to what I'm grateful for, what I prayed for, what I learned, what I won, what I lost, what today's going to be remembered as. It also has my prayer in it, so I can rehearse it when I need to. And I've just gone to a period of not doing that. I'm just not going to do that, and I'm not going to pray, and I'm not going to read, because it's just I'm sick of it. I feel like I'm held to it, right? And you have to trust that the whole, like, let it go, and if you love it, it'll come back, and it did come back, and I was hungry for it, and the novelty of it came back to me again. And it's like, sure, wake up at 4 o'clock every day, and then the day you don't want to, don't do it. Just don't do it.
Exactly. And I think that's what this January period taught me as well. Like, it was okay to not achieve things. It was okay to just sit and do nothing all day, which is not like me. Like, I'm not diagnosed, definitely ADD, right?
We all are. The best of us are.
The best of us are, because we're just so on the go. But I was so comfortable just being me. And at that point, me was sad. And I was okay with that.
That was that skin I'm talking about. You're like, you know, all
the perceptions and expectations and all of that stuff that I'd created over my whole lifetime was just shed. And like you said, that skin came off, and I haven't felt, and I did some poor behaviours like that guy that I actually had connected with, and I still feel really deeply connected to him, but we're not in a relationship. But I jumped into an anxious attachment style. I was hounding him, like, right? And I'm like, that's not me. So I went through periods that weren't quite me to understand who I was as well. So sometimes we do things that are driven by emotion until we realise and go, hang on a minute, but I control this emotion if I really want to. Oh,
yeah. Look, I spent a year in a relationship with someone I hated just to realise that I don't like that relationship.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And it's funny, actually, I mentioned before, you were in a casual thing that had no intention on being serious, and then it turned serious. I think that was like in a different sort of sense, that was the stronghold of the relationship I have with my fiance now.
Yeah.
Is that we started like, hey, this ain't anything.
Yeah.
But then after like, a month, you're like, I fucking really like hanging out with you.
Well, I remember the first hookup. I was like, he said something. I went, oh, this isn't a sleepover. Like, hey, I'm not in for anything serious. I've got too much going on.
Yeah.
So even openly spoke that. But for me, within a couple of weeks, I think it was fast, and maybe that was a bit scary for him, because for me, I trust and know that where I'm meant to be and what's meant to happen. Yeah. So when I started feeling these things and the connections happen, I got super excited. I'm going, wow, this is amazing. Never felt this way before. Yeah. Like, what's this going to give me? And then he was just more like, whoa, I've never felt this way before. And his reaction was to pull back,
Yeah, well, even the exercise of when you love something, to get away from it for a while, like, for sure, especially at the start. And the honeymoon phase is a really easy example of that, because you sort of like, it's so overwhelming that you fear that if you don't spend every moment together, that they might grow apart from you. But the reality is you're both feeling that at the same time. The best thing you can do is spend a weekend away from each other.
Yeah.
And then on Monday, you're like, fucking come here,
need to get in there. Yeah.
And it's such a, like, I don't know. It's an interesting scenario, because like then you sort of like, if I go back to the diary thing, like, as much as I love that, like, I really do like I like how disciplined I am in the moment when I'm writing that stuff at the end of the day, because I'm like, look at you, you're a winner, aren't you? And then one day when you're a multi-millionaire and you've made it and you built your empire, you're going to be able to give these diaries to your kids and say, look,
it's a legacy, right?
There's day by day that I made it. They don't fucking care. No. They're not going to read that. No. Like, I record these podcasts, like, they're going to have these brilliant callbacks. Like, do you know how old they have to be before they recognize that this is really valuable?
I know.
We're 25 years away from this meaning anything to them. Do it for you, buddy.
Yeah.
But that whole concept of being able to, like, appreciate the novelty in what you're doing, and then I don't even know where the correlation here, where these two things find each other in the middle, but it's like that concept that you're, no, it doesn't connect. Don't worry. I'm off on too much of a tangent.
My brain does that as well. But I think that's like one of my stickets that I used to have. So where in my previous house, when I was still in my marriage, I used to have stickets notes on the mirror, because it wasn't kind of cool to write on it. But anyway, so that was my adaptive thing. And one of them was, become a millionaire, not for the $1 million, but for the person you become.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think we're driven, probably society tells us to drive for those goals for the money, but to become someone that appreciates life, appreciates the journey, appreciates the reward at the end, which is the resource of money. Yeah. Like, that's what becoming a millionaire is really about, right? And
the Porsche isn't the goal, it's a byproduct.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like you said before, if we get to the top of the mountain, we're looking for the next thing. So many people, though, they just want to get a helicopter to the top of the mountain, right? I'm at the top of the mountain.
Get the photo, and
it doesn't last, right? That feeling, they don't have the accomplishment. Someone that wins lotto, they've actually shown, if you win lotto, you lose your money within years, sometimes even only months, right? Millions of dollars, you just waste it because you haven't become the person that's vibrationally aligned with that.
Yeah.
And so I do believe I'm going to become a millionaire as well. Like, I don't know how. There was an interesting exercise here, you might want to do this actually, on how our belief systems hold us back from that, right? So this guy actually, I saw it on a TikTok, but it's related to Bashar. Have you heard of Bashar?
No.
So Bashar's a guy that actually channels an alien. Sounds really weird, but if you listen to him, this alien's from this other civilization that actually gives those higher teachings on how we should be living life. His number one thing is follow what lights you up. follow your passion, right?
Yeah.
So that aligns with what we've been saying. But so this other guy actually put it more into a realistic term. So he said, write on the on your whiteboard, acquiring $1 million.
Yeah.
And then write down 1 year. Do you think you can do it 1 year? 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year? You might go, yeah. So then challenge yourself and go, okay, why can't I make it in 4, 3, 2 and 1 years? Like, what's holding me back from that? Do I think that I need to work hard for that? Do I think that I need to accomplish some things first?
Yeah.
And then start thinking about how you can get $1 million that defies those belief systems. So someone dies that you helped when they were 10, but they've left you in their will and you had no idea and they're a billionaire.
Yeah.
Bang, you got $1 million. Like tomorrow we could wake up millionaires, right? If the universe or if circumstances play out that way. But if we don't believe it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. Comes back to that belief system again.
Yeah, this is where distrust in faith starts to fall into it, because you go, okay, I mean, for sure, there's a reality where tomorrow I wake up and, you know, Riz is pregnant and all the things that I asked for are here.
Yeah.
There's also a trust in the thousands of days and millions of hours that I've lived that I've built this idea of what is actually possible. The reason why I can't be a millionaire in a year is because I have a deeper understanding of how money works compared to 5 years ago when I set that goal.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So I think that I'm giving you a very like real answer to a very theoretical question.
Yes.
Right? Because obviously it's an exercise that sort of like forces you to, and like I love
push your thought boundaries.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing, is we're raising the ceiling. It's like, well, you thought this. Well, why do you think that?
Yeah.
You know? And I think I don't know. I think this is where I try and create realistic paths for listeners in a way that I can reflect on the experiences that I've had, so I can build the trust that I need them to have in me to try and make positive actions in their life. You know, my story started when I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which basically outlines, you know, like having faith, having a purpose, and then putting faith in the journey that it takes to fulfill that purpose.
And you look at that book, it was written in like 1947 or something like that, right?
It was like early 1900s.
Yeah. And then I think the one I read was reprinted or something, and that was another version, but that around that year. But so it is quite sexist, and it is quite, but because of the time it was written, still has good messages. I read it and loved it.
Yeah.
But I love that you picked up on that element. It has that spiritual component in there.
It's the Bible.
Yeah, it has that energy element. It's like anything that we do in life that we're not connected with self, source, however you want to look at it, doesn't have passion, isn't going to serve you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where purpose comes from, right? It's living from our highest passion, whether that be, some people have a day job and if that works for them, fine. But on the weekends, they volunteer at a soup kitchen or they do this. That's where they get their purpose. And I suppose for you and I, we're one of those few people that are lucky enough to have gone, I'm going to trust and just every day get to live my purpose. And that's rare but beautiful, right?
Yeah, I think that's, I mean,
we all should be doing it, but you know.
Yeah, that's a big question and a big answer as well. I think I believe that I think at an intrinsic level, I believe that some people on this earth aren't even people.
Yeah.
I think that this most likely is something along the lines of a simulation, and I do believe there are people that don't have an inner monologue and don't have a subconscious. They're literally just programs bumping into walls when I don't see them. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, how can you have faith in one thing and not the other? It's like I believe that there are bosses in this world, and I believe there are employees.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's part of what we're meant to learn in this lifetime. So from my understanding, from seeing people in that in-between life space, so what I believe is before we come into this lifetime, we actually sit down and we actually plan out a lot of what happens, right? So the coincidence we think are coincidences, they aren't coincidences, right? They're set up from that higher space.
Yeah.
And so I also believe that everything is God. So even though you and I are different people, we're still the same person because we come from the same source element. Anyway, so before we come, we set out this plan. And from that space, I know that, like, I had kind of overshare, but even when I was a child, I had one of my family members, actually, there was child sexual assault elements, right, that I had to go through, went through court, they got off, like a whole, again, abandonment, let down thing from that age. But and this might freak some people out that have had this experience, because it's not a nice experience, it's quite traumatic. But when I look at it from that higher element of looking at it from purposeful, people elementally don't want to be bad people if we're a soul, right? Our soul is pure. Our soul is good. So I needed to experience that to be able to give me what I needed. I've helped numerous clients that have had issues from their childhood that look at me and go, how do you just function so well? And it can showcase something for them. So it's been helpful not just for me but for others. So this man came in and did evil acts, not just to me but to other people, right, while they were here, which was totally against that soul programming, but kind of put their hand up and went, I'll take one for the team, right? You need to have that experience. You need to do this to be able to set you up for that later on. You know how we're saying about becoming the person to become the millionaire, right? All of those times you scrape your knee were helpful.
Yeah.
Some a lot more traumatic than others, and so it's difficult for some people to get their head around, but understanding at that level gives that little bit more clarity and trust in things are always going to be okay. As a human, am I happy about it? No. Should he have gone to jail? Yes. I still have that human element. But when I'm able to step into my soul and my spirit, I kind of also can have gratitude for it. And that's where that the duality can come in, you know, in that space. And like you were saying, some are just simulations. Some do bump into walls. Some have purpose.
I think there's an element of looking for the lesson and everything there, and there's also an element of responsibility. So I remember a defining moment where I was like, everything good that has happened to me is my fault, and everything bad that has happened to me is my fault. And if you can do that and you take the power from everyone around you, it's all yours now. You know, like that relationship that I spoke of, 12 months of just torment, just fucking torment. But then when a good thing came along, well, I've seen the arse end of the spectrum. And I know this is a good thing. And for someone who never wanted to get married or have kids, I could not be more sure that I want to build the biggest fucking empire and give it to that woman and those children. Because, you know, the devil in disguise that called herself my didn't even like acknowledge that we're in a relationship for a year, like kind of living together, kind of not. And, you know, all she wanted was like, oh, I want to have your babies. I want to get married. I want to do this and rah, rah. It's like, fucking, you got to let me move my clothes into the wardrobe if you want that. You know what I mean? Like that's the last thing that I want. And if I was to want it with anyone, it just wouldn't be someone like you. You know? And lo and behold, 4 years into a something that wasn't defined as a relationship. And all of a sudden I'm like, we're watching 90 Day Fiance, and I was like, if anyone was to get married, it would be us. You know, and then in the height of my not having money and not having any clear future and a scope of work that was too wide to determine what business I even had, I went and bought a ring that was way too expensive and paid it off over 6 months and got engaged. And then, you know, the rest of the story is sort of the rest of the story. But yeah, there's such a, I think, you know, like I thought for a long time that my first 10 years of existence of just moving every 6 months and constantly changing towns and schools, and, you know, Dad managed transport yards. We're always moving to different, you know, like through the Pilbara, through the Kimberleys, bit in Perth, and then sort of landing here when I was 10. And I really like, through having these conversations with people, I would like go away and be like, well, why don't I have any siblings? Why didn't we have a constant? Why do we have to leave Victoria? Why all these things? And then you realize like, but now I can sit down and talk to anyone on camera, have a meaningful connection with them, and be able to like leave feeling like I've just opened up the community that little bit more for me, for the listener, for that person, and off you go, you know? So in a way, being moved around so much and having these experiences and having to be able to, you know, shoot the shit with a truck driver when I was 9 years old has now turned me into this person who just not only has faith in the universe, but just leans on it. Just all my weight, like, I'm yours. I'm yours. I have faith. I don't need to have assurance that today is going to be today, because I know even if it isn't, that was the way it's meant to be.
Exactly.
I am perfectly timed. I'm perfectly placed.
Another thing on my mirror is I am exactly where I'm meant to be. That's the first thing on my mirror. And part of my research, so when I've realized I could do these past life regression things, I was like, oh, and I was I consulted with a psychic, and she was like, I'm like, oh, I have to learn about this. And she goes, no, you just need to remember. This is something you've done for lifetimes, right? Like, it's just now you're starting to awaken and recognize it. So I thought, well, okay, what I'll do is I'll start listening to near-death experience podcasts, right? And stories of people that have had near-death experiences, so I can understand what happens from that other side perspective. And the messages, if anyone does listen to them, the messages are all the same. And that is exactly what we're saying here. Life is purposeful. Everything's timed perfectly. You know, you can question things, but more question it for growth rather than question it for fair and equitable measures, because that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, in the way that we live.
Oh, and I think you sort of mentioned it before with your reflection of the time in January that seemed horrible, and now it's like this weird blessing.
Yeah.
And like I look at my sort of trajectory in business, and I always make reference to these 3 sort of key moments where my world was crumbling.
Yeah.
You know, I remember I was contracting myself to do this like very specific sort of work for this reasonably big business that's now absolutely massive.
Yeah.
And I had the owner in front of a lot of people sort of yell at me like, "You're never going to make it in business. You're too arrogant." And like
challenge accepted.
Oh, for the first time in my life, I didn't respond with anger or violence or whatever. I was just like, all right, well, let's sit down tomorrow when everyone's tempered. Like, this is so unlike me to have this response. Like, you know what, let's just regroup and we'll talk about this tomorrow and it's all good. And like, yeah, well, you know, just all right, get out of here, you know? And I just walked out and I was like, oh, I don't do business like that.
Yep.
I don't do business like that.
Yep.
And now I look back on that and I'm like, go Jake. You little savage. Who does that? You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't even like I fought the urge to throw chairs around the room and be like, you don't even fucking know what you missed out on. It's like, no. I just, in that moment, it's like it
didn't align with you, right?
The
like
infinite intelligence just went, you're on level 2 now.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And even though he was on level probably 3 at the time.
Yeah. In
business terms, and that very, you know, stare at the sky and make up those numbers, but he was probably level 3. And he, at this point, was probably like, if we're using this made-up thing on the spot, he's probably like a level 6 and I'm probably like a level 6 too. Yeah. And it's like, I look sideways across at him. I'm like, you're not a businessman's asshole. Yeah. Because I would never do that.
Yeah. Well, see, this is what I've learned about being in business as well. There's people that are in business and that can be quite successful financially, but there's people that are in business that can be successful holistically. Right.
Yeah.
And that's showing up as good people as well. Like, I've got such knowledge of psychology, subconscious, all the bits that I could, and I'm really good at influencing. That's one of my strong points. I can influence and change and reframe people's mindsets and all that sort of stuff. It's another gift I've got. Yeah. I could talk people to coming into being a client of mine, but that's not how I roll. I'm there. And someone even said the other day, she said, what I really love about you, Gnomes, is when you talk to people, when I talk to you, you're not selling to me. Yeah. And I never do. When I first started my business, I did, and it was awkward and I didn't like it. And this is what all these marketing people told me to do and rah. And I've shifted a lot from that now. And now, though, the work that comes my way is so more aligned. And I get so much more out of it and the people get more out of it because it's better energetic fit, right? Right. But there's so many people that are corrupt, that don't have good ethics, that don't have all these good things. And look, it might look shiny on the outside, but I 100% guarantee it ain't shiny on the inside.
Yeah, look, I think you hit an interesting point there. I was talking to a client this morning and I said, "Oh, I love your hat. I can make that." You know, because I mean, that's how I assess every bit of clothing that everyone wears, whether or not I can make it.
Yeah, fair enough.
A lot of times I can. Yeah. You know, like this hat that I'm wearing, I can't make that. But
you know your limits, right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
And I was looking at a hat. I'm like, I really like that and looks cool. She goes, "Oh, it's a local business. You should hit them up to make their hats." I said, No. I don't chase work. Work chases me.
Yep.
And she took
I'm
a
magnet.
moment.
I attract.
Yeah. Well, she kind of took a moment. And she's like, "Oh, that's really cool." And I was like, yeah, and it's not just a saying, like fully. If I go to you and I'm like, "Hey, Naomi, I can do this, that, and the other, and I actually use a new method of decoration. It's not embroidery. It's a heat printing process where it's like a screen print and this, that, and the other." And you're like, "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll give it a shot." Well, now I've got to prove to you. Yep. Now, what happens when you go, "Oh, I need some printing done," and you're like, "Oh, did you just get some printing done? Where'd you get it done?" "Oh, well, I got this black ink outfit code, the tattooed guy, he's got the podcast and that." And you're like, "Oh, cool, okay." And then a week later, you're talking to the guys at Outdoor World and they're like, "Oh, we got all of our uniform." And then you talk to the guys at Nick's and they're like, "Oh, he does all of it." And then you talk to the guys at Little Spencer and then you talk to the guy. And all of a sudden you're like, who the fuck is this guy? Yeah. You know? Yeah. Everyone saw, I'll just go to him. So then you come to me with like, "Hey, I want to get this, that, and the other done." Well, they've already proved it for me.
Yes.
And I don't have to do the sell. I can just do what I do really fucking well.
Yeah.
We've already talked about that scope. And if you come to me and say, I want to do this and it fits in that scope, am I excited to show to you what I can do with this business?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that reflects in life.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
I'm not selling myself to anyone.
Yeah.
Like I do enough work that if you're going to find out about me, it will happen in due course. And when it does, I'm here for when you need me for whatever that is.
Yep.
You know, for my friends, that might be like a relationship question. Or for my clients, it might be a printing thing. And for people who are just meeting me, it might be for like a Bunbury thing. And if it's and fill in the gaps. But as soon as you're in this thing of like selling, like sure, all of life is sales.
Yeah.
Unless you're good at life. Mm-hmm. And then it's just about fucking being there.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, as we were saying before, there are no coincidences, right? And what is meant to be is meant to be. And I think when I first started my business, I actually was doing a few free sessions and stuff like that, or when I first got qualified in the hypnotherapy space, because I wanted to practice and I wanted to help people. And I actually found that when I did free sessions, they weren't getting results.
Yeah.
And it was purely because, one, there was no energy exchange.
Yeah, there's no value exchange.
No value exchange at all. So then I've said to some other people, what do you have to give me? Bake me a cake. You know, do this. As soon as I started doing that and there was some value exchange, then the results started coming through.
There's a price perception.
Yeah, and that price. So I'm quite premiumly priced
Yeah.
in my hourly contractual work that I do for corporate, and also with the RTT sessions that I do. But I've also got 2 degrees, a master's, doing a PhD, plus a heap of life experience, being 47. I think I'm undervalued, but at the moment, that's the value that I'm putting on that I think is acceptable, right? But if I tried to sell to you, I can help you, come in, do this, do that, do this, you're not going to see the value in that, right? You're going to go, shit, she's overpriced. She just needs the work. She's not going to help me.
Yeah.
And as you said before, the work I do is around the mentality. They need to believe something's possible for it to be possible. Yeah. So for me, it's really important to attract.
That price perception is very interesting. You know, if I know how much a shirt costs. Yeah. And when I go into Hillsies and I'm like, this is how much?
Yeah.
I could make 7 of those, the exact same thing that you're selling me. I can take a photo of it. I can design it. I can print it. I can press it. I can this, that, and the other. I can even do the label on it. I can do everything. Yeah. Right? And it's the exact piece for piece shirt. But when I wear that shirt, that costs however much it costs, and I see someone else wearing that shirt, that then psychologically says, well, we're in the same ballpark. We're in the same tax bracket. We believe the same things. Yes. We're in that clan, that tribe. Yes. You know? And it's funny because like I will B2B sales, typically not the case, because when you talk about uniforms, they cost what they cost. Yes. You know? Yes. And usually that business has that money to spend on that commodity, whatever. Yeah. They've already sort of anticipated, I'm going to spend $10K a year, $50K a year, whatever it is on these things. But if you talk about selling a hoodie at an event, right? I can sell a hoodie from anywhere from $40 to $150, depending on the event. Yeah. You know? And I think we paid $150 at Olivia Rodrigo when I took my daughter across to Sydney. Yeah. And it's an AS colour hood with a heat press on it. I can tell you how much 100%. It's worth and it will break your heart. Yeah, don't. Right? But that price perception of like, you know, even with my masseuse, she charges me X amount and I always give her that amount plus whatever cash I have laying around. Yeah. And sometimes it's double the amount. Yeah. You know, because it's like what I get in return, I feel like it's such a just thing to go like, I have this extra, I want you to have that extra because you give me so much extra. Value. Yeah. That value exchange is such an interesting conversation. Well, for a while there, I was doing monthly group hypnosis because it was my ability because I know that I'm priced out of the market for a lot of people's affordability and I still want to be able to serve. Yep. So I was just doing group sessions at, the Vallan Community Centre. Yep. So it didn't cost me anything to hire the room. So if I got nothing, I got nothing. And I would get anything in between $30, a couple of people would rock up to one time I got $250, right, for half an hour. There was only a handful of people. And again, to some people, $10 was worth $100 because that's what their availability of resources was. Yeah. And then someone else, I saw there was a couple of 50s put in there. Yeah. For them, that was the same value of a tenner to someone else, So I think that whole value perception, I think what I saw, when a little kid walks up to and gives you the flower or gives you their favourite rock, that's the only thing they have in existence, right? And we sometimes miss the importance of what that is that they're gifting us, Yeah, well, I think also... sort of like side door on that, the more you give money away, the more money comes back to you.
Yeah, 100%.
That's crazy. Like
Yeah.
I sometimes
it releases, it gives a flow. So
Yeah.
it comes back into that energy perspective as well. Again, the more you help other people, the more help you just get from the universe. So it's this comes back to this whole oneness thing that I was talking about before. Everything's interconnected.
Yeah.
So the more you're supporting and growing, the more comes back, and it comes back threefold, right? But that also goes for the other side. So those people out there that are negative and horrible and evil and things like that, they put out, that still comes back to them threefold.
Yeah.
And then their poor me's are miserable, and why is all this happening? Because you're a horrible person.
Perception of an unlucky person. Like,
Yes.
I'm unlucky, I'm unlucky. It's like you only look for bad luck.
Yes.
And then
you're going to find it.
Yeah, and then you find it, and then you throw that onto other people and then wonder why the universe only serves you this. It's like there is an abundance of good and bad. You have to pick the channel that you're gonna stab into. Yeah. And then you have to commit to that channel, and that works in the light and in the dark.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. And there's this infinite amount of reality. So, I've met you today. You've got a perception of me. My kids have a perception of me. My parents have it. So everyone's got this perception of me that's completely probably different to the perception I've got. So there's 1,000 me's running around or versions of me. And you're right. It's just like tuning into a radio station going, oh, I don't like that one. Oh, I'm going to go to this one. Oh, I don't like that one. So they're all existing at the same time. It's just which one are you going to tune into? Yeah. Which one are you going to show up as?
Yeah. And then also it's that realizing the fork in the road, the trigger of like, this didn't go how I want it to go. Am I going to allow myself to automatically tune into bitch Jake, or am I going to make a decision and go calm Jake?
Yeah.
Problem solving Jake. Problem solve Jake. Next problem Jake.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to turn into bloody aggravated Jake and then throw stuff around the room Jake, and then I'm making it sound like I do a lot of throwing stuff around the room. That's not the case at all.
All sorts of things,
But no, it's like I think we all have that in us. Yeah. Like I don't know whether it's a male tendency, but when things don't go your way, destroy everything.
Yeah. No, I think that's just a control tendency. So what I found is the whole element of anger. Anger comes from lack of control. That's the only reason people get angry, because they're unable to control a situation, a person, an element or something like that, and it makes them angry. Yeah. And sometimes it's just their inability to control their emotions, right? That's frustrating enough to bring anger. Yeah. So that's a control issue around anger. I don't think that's a gender-specific issue. But if you looked at energy, and there's an exercise we can do where I actually get people to say the word anger into their hand 5 times and look at it, really feel it, and then say the word love. And if you're susceptible to feeling energy, you'll actually feel that the anger is heavier and cluggier and yuckier. Yeah. Then I get them to just go like that and say disintegrate, because you can disintegrate energy, right? Yeah. It's transformable. But if you think about you just said a word and looked at it and created that, and it's heavy, if you continue to ruminate in some thinking pattern, in some emotion, without actually processing and moving it on, that sits around you. Yeah. Like my husband at the time, he was a real worrier, right? And I remember this one time, as I'm getting more in tune with me and how I feel and how I vibrate and really connecting with that, I sat down on the couch and I'm like, oh my God, I'm really worrying about all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't worry. These aren't my thoughts. Yeah. And I picked up that even just the area of the room he'd been worrying that much that he left that vibrational frequency there. So out I got with my salt water, right? I sprayed it all and I broke it all up. But and I think that's the thing that we could be teaching more people, because we can't see it though, people don't accept it. Yeah. But the power of that energy element of everything's energy. Thoughts are things. We say it, but we don't actually really look at how it can affect us a lot of the time.
Oh, that just triggered I remember, I don't even know what I'm about to say. I remember when I was in Prague once, so privileged. Yeah.
But sorry for that. No.
Yeah. I was sitting at this cafe, and this couple walked past, and I couldn't even tell you what they dressed in, just like all black, and like before they were there, they were gone. And they were just like, you felt them. It was like a wave, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, it's almost bringing a tear to my eye, like remembering the feeling. And I was like, oh, that. Like, I don't know what that is, but that, And then, like, bench that for a second. There's always been these people that are sort of like magnetic in a way, where they're just like, you don't even know what it is, but they, there's these little traits about them that I've always like recognized and tried to mimic. Because, of course, like I want to be this might be because I moved around all the time and I'm an only child, but I definitely want to be that person that sticks in your mind.
Yeah.
Of like I don't even know what it is about him. And like, to be honest, I don't know what it is about me either. But all the people in my life that I paid attention to, there's these little traits and these little characteristic sort of tidbits that I go, that, you know?
Well, it's how someone makes you feel, right? That's what you remember about them.
Yeah.
How they make you feel.
And what was the thing that they did that made me feel that way?
Yeah.
And can I mimic that thing? And can I master that thing? And that's probably why I have such a strong emphasis on communication and how I communicate and making sure that I communicate effectively and being able to come up with analogies and metaphors and help you visualize. So you're like, you're in this room with me, you get it. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's this like, I'm still the apprentice in this, but I think I'm on my way to being that magnetic person that I want to be. And when I think about like that, like what is it about that couple that sticks in my mind? And what is it about these brilliant people that were in my life that seem to be like every time I'm around them, I'm just like enamored by them. Like, tell me more, like look at me longer, tell me, I just want to be here with you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there's an energy to that that's almost like I'm struggling to find the words. I'm good with words. I feel like I've got a good vernacular, but I still can't explain what I'm trying to think. And I think like it comes down to an energy.
Yeah.
There is something about them that it's just like an organized, like discipline. Maybe it's a shape of energy that's just like it works.
Or authenticity. You can feel authenticity, right?
Authenticity is a big thing because you're not confused about who you are, what you bring. And it goes back to that being able to passionately tell a story and not be embarrassed and not care about who's around you. There's something about that.
Yep.
You know, because you used to think, oh, you know, it's a dark, tall, mysterious man that has a croak in his voice and tells these stories from a long time ago that have a meaning behind them. But it's not. Yeah. It's actually the fact that he's lived enough of a life to be able to be mysterious, to understand what it means to let his facial hair grow because it tells a different story than if he's clean shaven.
Yeah.
To not let you see his eyes totally because he knows that he's giving away too much, which then ruins the air of mystery. It's all these like layers of like authenticity, of energy, of telling a story worth telling.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, we already kind of know you can walk into a room sometimes and you go, whoa. And we already say we can cut the air with a knife, right? There's all these little sayings that allude to the fact that at some point we believed that energy existed and we knew about it, right? And we could do things. So I did a spiritual growth conference at the end of last year. And one of the exercises I did with people is I had someone at the front of the room and I gave them a card with an emotion written on it. And I also told them how to express that emotion internally back to the group, got the group to read the emotion, right? Because it eludes energy. And the amount of people in the room that were surprised, that were like, they're like, oh, I'm feeling a bit of something in my stomach. It's like almost feel nervous. And they go, oh, it's nervous. And they're like, no, really? And so we underestimate our ability to tap in to I think they call it the Higgs field, right? Yeah. So there's actually a name to it. If you go into quantum physics, you can actually put some science behind it. Yeah. But sometimes we just don't need to put science behind it. We can just sit in it and we can just feel and we go, this feels good. Yeah. This doesn't. This person I meet, they feel good. This one doesn't. You know, and we can pick up from that frequency.
I think there's a breakdown of I don't even know why faith works. I don't need to know.
Well, it's a frequency. If you want to go in, it's a vibrational frequency. And when we've got faith, it's very similar to gratitude. So they're a higher frequency. Anything that's higher in frequency or higher in vibration, one, it feels better, but it also is better to being receptive. It's not as heavy and weighted down, you know?
Yeah, but I think the thing about faith is like, I'm going to admit most of this podcast has been very undigested thoughts that I'm just like seeing and going like, talk about that. I love hearing about
it. Go. Yeah.
But I think the thing about faith is like, and I don't like using this word because I believe that it speaks the wrong sort of tone about my belief in faith itself and like the infinite intelligence and God.
Yes.
But there's a magic to faith.
Yes.
That only works if you don't understand it.
Yes.
Right? So I used to think that there is no God because science can't prove it, right? And then it's not that, you know, it's easy to say, well, things happen and miracles are performed, and then I'm like, well, there must be a God because there's miracles.
Yes.
It's not that. It also ties into the responsibility thing of like everything good and everything bad is my fault, and being able to go, well, it's not that I need to know why this is, but I know that this is, and the more that I lean on it, the more that it gives me. And whatever it is, I think that there's almost a fear that it will punish me if I try and go, reveal yourself.
Yes.
It's like, I don't need it to reveal itself. It fucking works.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you can spend your whole life going, why? or you can make use of this thing.
Yep.
And even if it isn't an egotistical, pretentious, like hedonistic, like, well, I want that. Like, you can use it, as we said, for light and dark, good and bad.
Yeah.
If you want to surround yourself with money and girls and fame, like, it will give you that.
Yeah.
It will fully give you that. But I think there's, especially for the journey that I've been on, the purpose and the experience that it gives me, I like that I don't understand it.
Yeah. It keeps
it sexy.
Yes.
Yeah. And it also, like, it keeps me on my toes, because sometimes, like I'm asking for this, I'm asking for this, and I'm getting that. I'm asking for wisdom and I'm getting troubles.
Yeah.
Well, it takes troubles to get wisdom.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, there's like, all right, cool. There is even, I feel like even if there's a scientific explanation as to why this works, I don't think I want to know.
Yeah.
I think I just want to stay in this realm of like, ooh.
I read this book, or I listened to it because I'm an audiobook person. I don't have time to read. Plus, my ADD just wouldn't let me, right?
Yeah.
Get halfway down the page, I'm like, what was I reading?
Yeah, it's a skill, by the way.
Yeah. I can read because I've read textbooks and stuff, and I've studied for uni, but I'm not a fan. But anyway, it's called Money's Not the Problem, You Are.
Yeah.
Right? And it talks about all of the energetic connection and vibrational elements that are connected with attraction.
Right.
And one of them is a question that I asked for probably about 6 months. It's like, who do I need to become, perceive, believe, and who do I need to become, believe, and perceive? Who do I need to become, and what do I need to believe and perceive in order to hold a consistent $1 million in my bank account?
Mm.
And life started throwing me crap.
Yeah.
Right? And this is going really woo-woo, and some people probably won't get it, but I believe that was part of why my marriage ended. Because that person, I don't like to talk ill of people, but there wasn't a big vibrational match there. And I was compensating for a lot of the limiting beliefs and a lot of those heavier emotions that were being carried. And so while I was doing that, I couldn't level up my vibration.
Yeah.
I couldn't get into my authenticity in my space. And so I don't like to say the word holding back, but I wasn't at my full potential while I was influenced by that in that space. The stuff that happened to me in January, again, was another level up to get me into that place. So sometimes, it's like the whole saying, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
In order to get something, then there has to be a preparation to get that something. And sometimes the preparation isn't always what we want, but it's what we need.
Yeah, well, we perceive, we think that our current, we think that the version of ourselves currently could have the thing that we want in the future. But just as I said before, like, had I known when I was truck driving that this was going to be my reality now, I wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah.
But I've had to drop a lot of preconceived notions of who I am and how I operate to get to this point.
Yeah.
Like, just talking about listening back to the 7th podcast that I recorded, like, I hate listening to it because I'm just like, I don't waste time anymore.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a silence. I'm happy to just get straight into the podcast and not have an intro and, hey, my name's, shut the fuck up. No one cares,
Yeah.
So I think that, like, that, when you go, I want to be, easy one is like, I want to be a millionaire. It's like, right, you're not a millionaire right now because you have all of this baggage that's holding you back from being that person.
Yeah.
And the universe can't just go like, stop that, and I'll give you $1 million.
Yeah.
What actually happens is the universe goes like, well, there's something, and maybe that, and what if, and how about that? And then all of a sudden you go, well, get rid of that and that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And actually now I think about it, I don't need that either.
Yeah.
So instead of the universe going like, here are the answers, it's like, here's a bunch of problems that once you solve, you realize I can get rid of this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Like one of the big things is I've been riding Harley since I was 18. Right, and like getting tattooed and doing bad shit, in general, doing the stuff.
Yeah,
and then I might have been last year, could even be the year before. I had 3 motorbikes and like had a Harley and a stunt bike and another motorbike, and I was like, this isn't even me, eh? Like this isn't me at all.
Yeah,
like no. And I sold one bike, and I'm like, I thought that would hurt more.
Yeah.
And I sold my Harley and I watched that right away and I was like, oh, okay, that's that.
Yeah.
And then I sold the 3rd bike. I'm like, fuck, now I just got all this spare money because I'm not paying regos and insurances and fuel and a new battery every winter and this, that, and the other. And now I'm just like, every now and then I'll get a friend like, oh, you reckon you're going to buy another motorbike? Nah.
Yeah.
I was defending a character trait in me that I thought was me.
Yeah.
But in fact, it was just something that I tried on that I never got rid of.
Yeah, and that's a lot that happens with my clients in a really simple way of you saying that with the RTT is they come in and they go, I don't want to eat as much. I don't want to have anxiety. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And it's purely because they've created this identity that was helpful for them.
Yeah.
And it's learning how to shift from that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had that own self, and some of us do within ourselves have the ability to go, hey, this isn't working, I'm going to shift it. But whereas some other people grip so tightly, the subconscious is more in control than the conscious mind.
I think that's the difference. I think, yeah. And like also being the sort of fucking weirdo that's like, no, you don't have sore knees, you're going to run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm sick of hearing this. And that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
Like I think that's how this sort of like manifested this whole thing. It was like I just got sick of not being the person that I knew I could be.
Yeah.
And like I was going to bring this up before. I remember being on the bloody school oval in year 4 in Port Hedland. Yeah. And thinking one day I'm going to have it all.
Yeah.
I'm going to have it all. And there's going to be a documentary crew that follows me around. I'm going to have cameras on me and I'm going to, it's weird actually. I've referenced this once in the podcast before. I remember thinking, I don't want to listen to music. I want to listen to people have conversations.
Yep.
Right. So just to put this into context, this is in 2001. I had that thought.
Yeah.
Before any of this shit existed.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I realized it was a thing and like started listening to like Joe Rogan, I'm like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this. And it took years to materialize. And now we're episode 163.
When I was a kid, I used to get the tape recorder back then because at my age and tape myself pretending that I was hosting a radio show.
Yeah.
And I'd listen to myself back and things like that, not realizing now. And I also remember another place we had, it's amazing, had like a back patio, which was a porch with a big drop off. You didn't have any railings back in those days, right? It just dropped off.
You just built character.
Yeah. I used to go out the back there and because my brother and sister were so little and I just used to perform to the backyard. Used to dance and sing and perform and all this sort of stuff. And I always intrinsically knew. And so I've had my doubts because I'm getting older now, but also intrinsically knew that there was big things meant for me.
Yeah.
Like there was something big for me and I was meant to be in front of people and I was meant to, I suppose I looked at it as entertaining, but now I think it's about gifting knowledge or gifting something, whether it is an entertainment aspect, because even entertaining people gives them joy, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm meant to gift people, and I'm still every day when I do something, I actually ask myself, oh, I wonder how this is setting me up for that point where I get to gift the world my gift.
I think that's not necessarily that's not like the infinite intelligence preparing me for greatness. I think I somehow got onto the idea that my mantra would be that I would be great, and that helped me in my journey to becoming, if you call this greatness.
Yeah.
That was like, now that it's happening, I'm not surprised. I'm
yes.
like, I know. Yeah. Every day that I was driving a truck, I was learning a lesson of why I wasn't normal, why I shouldn't be driving a truck, because I knew deep down, like, yeah, I'm a good truck driver. I'll be fucking great at anything I did. Yeah. And this isn't the thing. This isn't the hill to die on. This isn't the thing. I don't want to be 60 years old and be like, yeah, I'd moved over 100,000 tons of sand. And who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Do something meaningful, And
I think that there was a book called The Big Leap by someone Guy Hendrick, I think it was, or Gay Hendrick. Anyway, he talks about the leap from the zone of excellence to the zone of genius.
Oh,
and it's only a small leap,
yeah.
But it goes from doing something that you know really, really well that you can do with your eyes shut to doing something well with purpose.
Yeah.
And that, I suppose, was explaining me from leaving corporate. Like I had people ringing me up as soon as I left going, come work with me. And I'm like, no, I'm starting my business. Like this is really important for me to come into this space now where when I make money, sometimes I'm going to go, I say to myself, oh, they really shouldn't charge me for that because that was too easy. It was easy for me. It's not easy for the person next to me because they're not built like me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I
could charge them more.
Yeah, charge it more. But so there's this space of, and that comes with a whole element then of being in imposter syndrome, right? Of going, hang on, do I really deserve this? If you haven't set your mind up, right, to the right space to go, I deserve everything. Like I've worked I've worked too hard when I think about it. And when I say too hard, I've worked hard needlessly. Like I didn't need to work that hard, but I was programmed to work hard. Yeah. And I look at it now and I go like, yeah, half the stuff I've done I didn't need to do. I just did it because I felt I had to. It's probably has set me up for greatness. But if I just followed my passion and my joy and just showed up authentically every day of my life, which I probably wasn't programmed to do, so that's probably why I didn't. Yeah. But I think I would have the same amount of joy in my life as I do right now.
That 110% mentality though, that's my dad has it like terribly to a fault. You know what I mean? He can't just sweep the room. He has to mop the floor and paint the walls, and you know. And like I grew up with that expectation. I always have this this interesting metaphor that I fall back to called sticks in the yard. Yeah. Doesn't matter how many when we moved to Bunbury, we lived on 1.5 acres, and this massive tree in the middle. Like obviously a lot of trees, but massive tree in the middle. And he gave me to pick up the sticks and put it in the bonfire, like the area that we're going to burn. And it didn't matter at what point of me picking up those sticks, whether it was the beginning or the end, it was Monday or Friday, there was always more sticks in the yard. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
And it's the exact same. If you're vacuuming the house, there is no limit to how much you can vacuum the house. If you're washing the dishes, you can end up cleaning the entire kitchen, which turns into repainting the house.
Yeah.
That 110% mentality, if there is ever any sort of environment where that works good for, it is business.
Yeah.
It is relationships.
Yeah.
It is communication.
Yeah.
Because if you like, I've talked about it a couple of times on the podcast, but I obsess about communication to a point that I've let it ruin afternoons in the past because because a phone call didn't go right.
Yeah.
Because I
ruminated over it so much.
I hung up too soon. I didn't listen to this part of the thing. I forgot their name at the beginning of the call, and shush. There's such a there's something about that I like sitting in the discomfort that I feel because I don't do a job to the best of my ability because I know I never let it happen again. And I know that thing manifest over years, that is what creates greatness.
Yes.
You know? And I think that this isn't exactly a tangent that aligns with what we're talking about, but I think it's interesting to bring up I always get caught up on this, but it's something I've only just put together. So not everyone who intends to achieve greatness achieves greatness, but everyone who does achieve greatness first intended to do so.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think that it's not crazy to have the most ambitious intention, and it's not unreasonable to go like, oh, I'm not going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be 100 millionaire. I'm going to be a billionaire. Yeah. Right? Because it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to achieve it, but it's better than kicking rocks.
Yeah.
It's better than mediocrity.
Yeah.
You know, so why not? Why not?
Well, there's this thing that I heard. So if you put your arm in the air, just put your hand up in the air. Now put it higher. So why didn't you put it higher the first time?
Yeah.
You know, like we just sometimes we don't challenge ourselves, and so we are capable of more than what we actually realise we're capable of, right?
Like immediately goes, it's like, no, put it down a bit.
And then if you did that, I was going to be screwed on my analogy there. But that some people they're all at it people, and they're always going to have some sort of success.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that there's another book called The Four Agreements. Now, this was my first introduction to books. Yeah,
that's Tolkien or something.
Yes, yeah.
I've gifted that book to so many people, by the way.
So have I. Yeah. I had copies that I could give to people. Yeah. And the last agreement there is always do your best.
Yeah.
And the people that I've seen that have come in to me that have issues around guilt and shame and all of those things because they haven't done their best.
Yeah.
The other people that self-sabotage, they're like, well, if I don't do my best, then if it falls apart, I can blame not doing my best. It's not because of my inadequacies.
If I gave it my full bit, I would have.
Yeah, I would have been able to do it. Yeah, and as an excuse. But that's when. So my first relationship fell apart because of infidelity. My baby was 6 months old at the time as well. So I was postpartum. Like it was just a mess. Like it's probably 2nd to January. I was looking to take my life back at that point. The thing, and I was thinking tablets because I'm a chicken shit. I didn't really want to hurt myself. But I looked at my son and his family his dad's family were all in on it. setting all this this affair up, and I was like, I don't want them to raise my son. So that's what basically stopped me. But in that process, I actually went and saw Anthony Grizelka, who's a spirit medium in town. Okay. And when I left from seeing him, and he brought up all of my childhood stuff, like my nana had passed away and she was recounting all this stuff that happened to me as a kid and how guilty she felt because she knew and she did nothing about it, and how she can see it anyway. And I was just like, whoa, blew my mind. And as I walked out, I felt like I was floating.
Yeah.
And being in that room, my vibration had raised that much, my frequency, that it actually caused that floating feeling. And at that point, I'm like, shit, there's more to life than I realize.
Yeah.
And so moving into spirituality is basically what pulled me out of the depths of where I was.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I was actually doing clairvoyant readings from people. I could see things, everything. Like I was really heavy in it. But one of the first books I read in that space was The Four Agreements. And that was such a game changer for me. I don't really have the clairvoyance anymore now, though.
Yeah, I feel like that's opening dark doors, hey?
Yeah. Well, when
I got to take a leg. I'm busting.
Yeah.
Concentrate.
I love your little affirmations on the board. They're mint.
Yeah, I wrote that ages ago and then never got rid of it. And it's been the background of the podcast because the putting everything in here is kind of recent. Like
okay,
maybe this year.
Yeah,
and now it's like sort of relevant to everything I talk about. I'm like, I can stay there for a while.
So good. Yeah.
I have so many like aspirations to. I don't know. I feel like it's a bit flat. Like the backlighting is quite recent, so it sort of brings a bit more volume into the shots. But I don't know. I think I want like a plant or a light or something that sort of separates, because it's sort of very like white. But yeah, all in good time. As I say, 1%. That's it. I'll let it come to me, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's getting started. Getting started is better than not starting at all. And I think when you were saying about doing that 110%, like when I first started my business, like I wouldn't launch a potential program because the branding wasn't right or the colouring wasn't right, or
who cares?
You could just go too far. Yeah. So it's been a real lesson to me on doing it is better than not being done, you know?
Yeah. And also like this, so I like one key thing that I always say to especially young crew that are trying to like get into business or start this creative endeavor, it's like the first draft of everything is meant to be horrible.
Yeah.
That's why it's a draft.
Yeah.
You know, and you want to think like, oh, it's not quite ready. The logo's not quite there. The business name isn't. If you're good at what you do, it can be called anything and have any logo. My business is called Black Ink.
Yeah.
What is Black Ink?
Yeah.
You know, like everyone thinks I'm a bloody tattoo studio. I've got a logo that's a mandala with a triangle. It doesn't make any sense. It's like I look at it and go, it could be better, but who cares?
Yeah.
I'm making money and doing the thing and having fun. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like I even went on my Black Ink website this morning, on my outfit website, like, oh, I've got to do this and that. Just do this and that.
Yeah.
Don't wait until there's 3 key things you're going to sit down for 6 hours and brainstorm and fuck around. Just do that.
Yeah.
And the next time you're on it, if you need to change this, change this.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's just one of those like business, you know, like business acumen that you get along the way that, you know, there is no great big change. It's going to change everything. It's a million small changes that equivalent into this result that you're after.
And it can always be different. It can always be better. It can always be, you know, you might have a different idea and want to change something, but if it's there and people can find you. So I think that's the thing of looking at from business. I've changed now a little bit of my focus of I'm there to serve. Like that's my purpose in life, is to serve.
Yep.
And I love to serve. And so I at least need to have a website so people can find me so I can serve them.
Yeah, for sure.
It might not have the perfect copy and it might not have the perfect colours and whatever else, but the right people are going to see it and go, oh, that's who I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I've had many clients that have said that, oh, I saw a couple of your posts come up and then, and then something else come up in an advert, and then I was just like, oh, I can't go past this. I need to reach out to this person. So, you know, you're in the right spaces where you're meant to be.
Yeah, I think marketing is such an interesting thing. Like my original thing with Black Ink was a coffee van, and then I made clothes, like T-shirts, and that did really well. And then I sold the coffee van, kept the name.
Yeah.
And then this whole iteration of business that started 5 years ago, the whole idea was I was going to make – I YouTubed how to make money online.
Yep.
And I came across drop shipping.
Yes.
And I learned how to use Photoshop and Illustrator and build websites and market and find a product and test it and create content, and then use that as marketing and promotion, and then fulfill sales and all these things. And then I was like, oh, I know how to do all this stuff. but I hate the product that I sell.
Yeah.
And I've got a brand in the background that people are like asking every like fortnight, like, hey, when's Black Ink? What's Black Ink? Why isn't it? So I was like, of course, I'm going to design shirts and sell them on a website that I'm going to build. Black Ink's never had a website.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I like build a website. I'm like, oh my goodness. Now I'm designing shirts. Now I'm getting them outsourced. And then I realized, okay, I was talking to my still primary mentor and I was like, dude, I think the next step is making my own shirts. He's like, yeah, dickhead, you got to produce your own goods. Otherwise your profit margin was like $5. You got to sell 1,000 shirts every week to make this work.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, got into production. And the whole time I wasn't saying, buy my shirt. Here's a picture of my shirt. Here's me wearing my shirt. Here's someone else wearing my shirt. It's, I'm going to buy a screen printer. And I sold my caravan, so now I can afford this screen printer. I'm buying it off Mark Mason and this, that, and the other. And then, you know, here's my first screen print. Here's a video of me doing the screen printing. And then the screen printer's not that good. And I borrowed my mate's heat press. And now I'm going to buy my own heat press. And now I bought this vinyl cutter and printer. Yeah. And so people are going, wait, so you can screen print? Yeah, kind of. Can you do our screen printing? Yeah, I could. So then I do their screen print, take a video of it, put that up on marketing. Yeah. And then through this, I mean, the story tells itself. I'm telling people about the story and then people are going, let me contribute to the story.
Yes. Yeah.
Now
I want to be a part of that story.
Right?
Yeah.
And now there's this like crazy, including the coffee van, there's this like 10 plus year story of the network that I built that people almost use it as bragging rights. So like, he used to make my coffee back in the day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like building a valuable enough story through the marketing of the process that you build this like equity in people's connection to it. Mm. So it's, and like now, like I said, like I don't chase work chases me. Yeah. And it's because like I've got such whether I made you coffee 10 years ago or whether I make you a high-vis uniform today, there is no way you can say I didn't do a really good job of it. Yeah. Yeah. You know, like that's the consistent throughout the whole thing. So it builds this thing where if I go, hey, I'm gonna host a roller disco which I want to do, by the way. Yeah, cool. I'm going to host a roller disco in a public space and it's going to be a real spectacle, going to be a family event, rah, rah, rah. Yeah. People go like, well, I never heard of him doing it, but I'm sure he will. That motherfucker does stuff like that.
And you know what? I think that's a legacy I built for myself as well because I have people go, when I go, I think I'm going to do this, they go, you'll be awesome. Yeah. And I remember, go for it. My son, I forget what it was that I said I was going to do now. I forget something. I said to him, because one of my goals is a lilac Lamborghini. Right. And I now realise I don't want to buy one because then I've just got to pay insurance. I'd be a bit more practical. Yeah. But I at least want to hire one and have a photo shoot in it, right? So I go, that's my little tick of going, and it's my screensaver on my phone and I do all the manifesting bits. And I think I was saying that to him and he looked at me, he goes, Mum, if there's anyone in this world that could end up with a lilac Lamborghini, it'll be you.
It's you, yeah.
And like that really melted my heart for my kid to say that.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, my kids mock me with my energy healing as well, but as soon as they're sore, they go, Mum, can you heal me? Yeah. You know, so that's what family does. But I think, having that legacy of if I was built on other people seeing my potential and now I'm fueled by people seeing my potential. Like it's not a necessity now, but it's a little bit of a, I am good, right? Because they can see it too.
There's definitely it's like another tier to it when you monetize that thing. Yeah. That, what do you call it? Like air, I guess. Yeah. But then when people and I've recently just put my prices up. Yeah. Because, you know, the thing, if you're too busy, put your prices up.
Yes, exactly.
You know, because the people that you lose, they weren't good customers and the people that you keep are happy to pay it.
Yes.
And in the mentality of like, well, can I put my prices up? The first thing I ask is, well, why didn't you put your prices up sooner? Yeah. Because I didn't believe it. I know what it's worth. As I said before, I know how much the Billabong shirt costs to. Yeah. But Billabong charge that much because they've built a brand that people want to wear. Because you believe that they are a surf brand that represents the things that you represent.
It's quality.
It's quality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if it's not quality that they're selling you, you're part of a quality club that you want to be a part of. Yeah. So then I go, well, the reason that I'll increase my prices is because I'm a fucking workwear specialist. Yeah. Because I know what every industry wears. Yep. And if you say, hey, I need uniforms, tell me about your job. Yep. Like, how do you move? What's important to you? You know, long sleeve, short sleeve, collars, buttons, elastic. Yeah. What's important to you? Yeah. You know? And then, regardless of what it costs, I'll put you in something that you won't give a fuck about the cost because you're comfortable in. because you're going to spend like 60% of your life at work in what I'm going to dress you in.
Yeah.
So we're at least going to make sure that you feel good, look good, you appreciate putting on your uniform. And when you put it on, you feel like you're wearing a thing that encapsulates you and the duty that you've got. That's why it's more expensive.
Yep.
That's why.
Yep.
And that to be able to like put, and also like it's uniform, it's shirt. Who cares about printing?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
But that's not the point. It's being able to go like, not only do you perceive me as that professional, but I perceive me as that professional. And now we're tying back into like, cool, we monetized it, we found purpose in it, and now it's easy to wake up and be excited about uniforms and printing and communicating with people about uniforms and printing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because it's more than just the uniforms and printing. Like it's like you said, it's the way you make people feel. Like that's really what drives you. Yeah. All the rest of it is just the logistics to get you there. And it's probably fun logistics, right? You get to be creative and you get to do this and you get to challenge yourself. So that's fun. But I think the purpose element, when we really say we're following our passion, is when we find something that we can see gives value to people.
Yeah.
Makes them feel good about themselves or about something, you know?
I had a client just recently. He said, I want you to dress all of my employees head to toe. I want you to do all of our uniforms. We deal with 3 different businesses at the moment. We want to deal with one business.
Yep.
I said, oh, great. Cool. What we'll do is I'll actually come and talk to all of your employees, create a matrix. I understand what their job roles are and what they want to wear.
Yep.
We'll have everyone wearing what they want to wear, but it'll be uniform across them.
Yep.
Right? So there's little things, little tricks you can do. I'm not going to give away my trade secrets.
No, don't.
This is basically what I'll deliver.
Yep.
He goes, great. So I do that, have the consult, spend about 45 minutes going through his entire workforce. We establish what the goal is, what the overall sort of aesthetic that we're trying to achieve is.
Yep.
And I go away, I build this package and I send it to a big PDF. Here's how each person's going to be dressed. And here's A and B choices for the people who weren't quite sure.
Yeah.
And he goes, cool. Can we get a sample of this and that? And I want to see what this feels like and we'll get a sample of this. And I was like, yep, cool, sweet. Takes 2 days to get here from the supplier.
Yep.
It gets here. We unwrap it out of the box of all the other shit that gets delivered that day. Yeah. I get straight my van, go around there. I'm like, here you go. I'll let me know. You know, like there's no like, are you done? Give it back or I'll be back tomorrow, whatever. It's like, sweet, cool. Sends me another email. Hey, can we get a sample of this and this? Yeah, cool. 2 days later, bang. This happens 4 times. Yeah. 4 times.
Yeah.
And he ends up putting through this really well put together order. I love it when customers know what they want. Yeah. I want this, and like each person is broken down so we can complete that matrix. So now we've got, if Tony needs more of pants, I know what size he is, what pants they are, what color it comes in, the thing that Tony likes. Yep. Right? Anyway, we do the order, we deliver the order, and I'm talking to him after the fact, and he goes, well, we just won't go to anyone else now. Yeah. And I said, yeah, that's the idea. You know, like we set this up. He goes, no, you don't understand. It didn't matter what I asked for you. You didn't hesitate. You didn't
make me feel shitty about
nothing,
it. It wasn't too much.
There was never a delay between emailing you and getting a response. Yeah. You know, every time, and there, I already knew it, but it highlighted it so perfectly that I don't sell uniforms. I sell service. Yeah. I sell communication. Yeah. You know, and all of a sudden the years
all the things that you're passionate about, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's like, it's especially
connection.
I don't think it depends on the industry. I think people like having their problem solved, and they like a really notable service when solving those problems. Yeah. You know? And it's like it doesn't matter what you are. It doesn't matter what you do. If you can figure that out in your business, then you always outperform the competition. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And I think that saying yes as well and working it out later is really important. Like a couple of months ago, I had 2 clients in a month reach out to me and go, hey, do you do mediation? I'm like, of course I do. And I'm like, well, I'm obviously got the skill set to do it. Just because I haven't done it before, it doesn't mean I can't, you know, whereas other people would probably go, oh no, that's not my thing. Yep. And I do believe that there is an element, you know, when people go, pick one thing, stick to it, do it well. I get that, but that's not how I roll. I'm always, because it's not the thing that I do, like you just said, it's not the thing that I do, which is what gives me passion. Yep. It's solving the problem. It's helping the person. It's giving that element of service for me as well. Yep. That fills my cup and that gives me the passion.
Yeah, as long as it's in
nailed
that
it
scope.
too, if I need to say so myself in both occasions. But you know, like if I had been not in the right mindset, I probably would have gone, oh, I think I can. As soon as I said I think I can, they would have been like, over. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. You know, you need to have that confidence.
Yeah, yeah. I think that saying yes is really important as long as it's in the scope.
Yes.
Has
Yeah, I
to be in
agree
the
with that
scope.
actually. Yeah.
You know, because
like they asked me to print shirts, that's a definite no. I'll refer to you because I just have no idea on that.
I even get it like now people go, oh, if I bought 25 shirts from Kmart, can you print them? No.
Yeah.
No. It's going to cost you the same amount to get new shirts printed from me than what it will to supply and I've got to come pick them up, I've got to drop them off, I've got to fuck around, I've got to do all these things like, no.
Yeah.
Just, I sell you a high quality shirt for the same price printed.
Yeah.
And I think in that moment when you see that message or that phone call or that email and you're like, look, 20 shirts, decorated, supplied, I don't have to supply it, I'm making the most amount of money I can off a particular job based on a percentage margin.
Yep.
Should I? No, fuck them. It doesn't fall into the scope. We've spent too long figuring out what the scope is just to go like, oh, but it's worth money, I'll do it. Yeah, you can make money designing websites. I can make money designing things on Illustrator. You know, I can make money producing people's podcasts because I know how to. No, that's not what I do. But what I do, like when he asked me to dress his staff head to toe, it's like, oh, I built an entire system around this. Be ready to have your socks blown off. Because I do this exactly. You know?
When I first left corporate, because I had such a big auditing background.
She got you then.
She did, scared the bejesus out of me. So when I had this big auditing background in corporate, and so when I came out,
it's just like a 2-stroke engine right now. She's not even breathing between barks. Come on.
She's next level.
Yeah, it's the postman.
Oh, it's the postman. Yeah.
And we're good.
So in corporate, I did a lot of auditing, and when I came into my own business, I'm like, another thing I can offer. Yeah. So I actually went and went SAI Global and actually sat all of their exams and stuff and actually got accredited as a ISO auditor. Wow. And I had it for a year and I hadn't scheduled in any audits. And I'm like, why am I paying this money for this thing? It doesn't really, I'm really good at it. Doesn't float my boat. Just as it expired, I get this email going, oh, we need this audit done. Can you do that? And I actually went, no, that's not my forte, but here's some people that can. Yeah. And I kind of took that for me that, you know, I think I was at the point where I was trying to scope myself up to do everything. And although I say, oh, don't pigeonhole yourself, you still have to have that scope of like what brings me joy, like what lights me up. Or if you're not doing so well, okay, I need to make a couple of bucks, fine. But if you don't need the couple of bucks, just follow the passion, I think is the key. Yeah. The money will come.
And that then falls back onto the intuition conversation as well. Yes. Like you'll be halfway through doing something, you're like, why the fuck did I say yes?
Yep.
You know, and I have that.
This is a lesson, not doing this again. Yeah.
100%. Even things within my scope there, it's like, even when you say yes, you're like, I'm going to hate this. And then the first little thing goes wrong and you're like, why do I do this? You know, the third thing goes wrong and you're like, I'm going to bloody lose it if this doesn't, if I have to print this one more time, you know? Yeah.
I have to get my mindset in.
Yes. But, anyway. Yeah. Is there anything you would like to promote, shout out, let people know about?
Oh, look, if people want to learn more about me, they can go to my website, getupandgrowconsulting.com.au.
That'll be in the description.
Yep. And, just keep being good people. That's all I want.
How exciting.
Yeah, hopefully gave some value today. And if we gave you some value, go and smile at a stranger. You know, go and spread the joy.
Yeah, it's for free.
Yeah, it's for free.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, be good to your mum because we are out.